Well, good evening, my friends. I'm Erica Lukes, happy to be here on UFO Classified, and to say that this has been one of those weeks would be putting it mildly. Last week, on my third broadcast on YouTube, I had a very interesting show which was opened up by one of Travis Walton's colleagues, Mike Rogers, who did a 2 hour interview and told us a little bit about his story, which has been very controversial as of late because of the phone conversation that was recorded by my guest this evening. It has been a week, like I said, where people are reeling from some of the information that Ryan Gordon has presented. And I must say, and this goes to all of you in the UFO community who have been so nasty, shame on you. I am here every week and I work incredibly hard to present the truth. I do it at great expense, as do others that I bring on my show. It isn't easy and it's not fun. And so for me to see, simply because I'm putting forward information, the UFO community coming out with not only threatening people, but going into specific Facebook and social media groups and threatening and abusing people who are posting my link to the show. If that wasn't bad enough, we also have other threats that are coming in and blogs that are being written. And this is what I have to say to those of you who don't have the professional courtesy to send me a message. Are you part of the problem? Because I think you are. And I know for me and for the people that are here tonight, we are here to get the truth. And that is it. So you can either be an adult, get out of the sandbox, ask questions, be thoughtful, look at the information presented, and then come back with something intelligent. But unfortunately, it has highlighted the dysfunction, the bullying, and the abuse that we see in the UFO community. And my friends, that is exactly why we haven't made progress in almost 70 years. So if you are enlightened people who are receiving transmissions from the benevolent Space Brothers, I would certainly think that maybe you could do a little bit more and be a little kinder. As we've seen with certain controversies over the years, like MJ12 and Rendlesham, with some of the things that took place with Larry Warren and some of the things that happened there, which I won't go into, I'm sure some of you know, we ought to give each other a little break and be patient. It was amazing to me, and I'm just going to say one more thing, but I watched social media, we all did, and the most amazing thing to me was I watched social media and I saw a lot of people in the UFO community out there, well, throwing temper tantrums, telling people to F off, behaving badly, writing blogs. And at the end of the day, it's what did that accomplish? At the end of the day, I asked some of those people, did you actually listen to the show? And the resounding answer that all of us got when we asked this question was no. So either you're willing to look at the facts, either you're willing to sit down and go through last week's interview and ask thoughtful and diligent questions, and we can get to the bottom of things, or you're going to act like you were just pushed off the swing set with your little bullying pulpit and friends. I mean, what are you doing? Anyway, I'm a little riled up about this because to me this just exemplifies why we've never moved forward, and it really has been quite shocking. So tonight I am going to bring to the stream my friend Scott Brown, who is here. I'm also going to bring Barry Greenwood. And all of us have been talking a lot about what has happened. In fact, I think I've talked to both of you more than I ever have in my life. And Barry, I talk to you all the time. But let me ask you first, Barry, what were your thoughts after last week's show and your thoughts about the reaction from the UFO community?
Well, I hadn't thought about the Travis Walton story very much for many, many years. I was around when it first broke in 1975. I heard the news reports. It sounded like someone disappeared under mysterious circumstances. And he was missing for 5 days. And it sounded to a lot of people at the time like a crime was committed. Maybe he was killed. And these guys are inventing a crazy story to cover it up. But eventually, Walton turned up, and he had quite an amazing story to tell. He said he was taken aboard a UFO. And prior to that, he had seen it with his friends in a work truck as they were up on a mountain, and they claimed they saw a UFO hovering over the trees. Travis jumped out, some impulsive reason. I don't know if I would do that myself if a UFO were in the air. I'd stay undercover, but according to the story, that's what he did, and he was zapped by a beam of light from this object that was in the air. He apparently was knocked backwards. The rest of the crew panicked, took off, and returned. They couldn't find Travis. That's the story as I understood it back in 1975.
Mm-hmm.
And years went by, and then
What was it?
within the last week or so, this new event occurs. Mike Rogers is on telling his story. There seemed to be contradictions between what he said and what Travis had said. It amounts to bickering between the two. It's not a good sign when you're trying to convince people that the story is coherent and everybody's hanging together and had seen the same thing, but that's the way it happened. And then after that, you chimed in with new information, which I didn't expect. And the fellow Ryan Gordon surfaced, and he had a great deal to add to the story. And he seemed to be directly involved.
And yes, and exactly. And I wanted to say that it was really interesting to me to see how, of course, we're so, conspiracy theory driven in the UFO community, but to see how people were, really saying that he's part of a dark cabal.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction afterwards was surprising, but then again, not so surprising. It was pretty consistent with what I've heard about controversial cases over the years. Some people think it was a mysterious event, others think it was a hoax, and there's a lot of people in the middle trying to figure it out. The difference now, as opposed to past events, earlier pre-internet even, is that comments are spread a lot wider and a lot more frequently. And so you get a very inflated picture of the commentary as opposed to decades ago. And the virulence of some of it is what shook me. People were really violently using verbiage to bombard folks on either side of the coin. Not so much the objective critical side of this, people not understanding the story very well and trying to figure it out, but it seemed that folks believing that Walton's story was true were extremely agitated, and they saw anyone questioning the story as tantamount to being a traitor to the subject, which is just absolute nonsense. But that was the attitude, and it continues. This is fairly new, and it's rolling along. So that's what struck me the most. The some of the vulgar nature of it.
Erica, you're muted.
I hate it when that happens. Thank you, Scott, for having my back. So I think that was very interesting, and I think it's funny, Barry, when you and I had talked, you had mentioned the propaganda aspect, and that even though we're presenting facts, there's the propaganda machine is rolling, saying we are attacking Travis Walton and these people, and that's simply not the case. We're asking questions, which is what we all should be doing. We're presenting new information, which is what we all should be looking at, because we know this field is full of. We've been conned, we've been lied to, and we deserve the truth.
Yeah, there's an issue with terms that's surfaced recently, and I think there's when you talk about propaganda, it goes both ways. Extreme skeptics feel there's nothing to any story whatsoever; they're all mistakes. And the extreme belief, they accept things that probably shouldn't be considered by anyone as evidence of much of anything. But there's an issue of language too, and I'm not talking about the vulgar stuff, but just in general, it seems that terms used in this subject are not well understood. The definitions are clear in the books, in the dictionaries, but they're abused and misused. I'll give you an example. Uh, we all know what the term debunker is, or at least some of us do. It seems to vary between people, but I looked it up. I rely on a dictionary to tell me what a word means, not someone out there's interpretation of it. And I found this, and you wrote it down to remember it. Expose the falseness or hollowness of a myth, idea, or belief. That sounds pretty reasonable to me. I recall when in the early days with when I was a member of Mass MUFON, uh, we worked on compiling a field investigator's manual. And the manual was supposed to tell people how to look into stories objectively, not from the point of view of believing that aliens were coming to Earth, but simply to assess a sighting report and to determine if it met the criteria of extraordinary origins or nature. And I thought we had all of these issues settled with the manuals, but it seems like there's going to have to be more work on this.
Right. Absolutely.
People should be
Absolutely.
relying upon the manuals as guidance, and instead the terms are being changed to suit whoever is offering a particular view on it.
Right, absolutely, and I think it is interesting because I'm in here, and I just want to give a shout out to everybody in chat. This is so amazing to see Colin Andrews, to see Jim Morris, to see all of these people that are shadowy spectrums. I mean, a lot of great people are here in chat. They're paying attention because the last week's show has really struck a nerve, as it should. I have received phone call after phone call from people that are they want to know what's going on. They had reservations about the case 40 years ago. They are heartbroken. We're trying to get to the bottom of this and to ask questions. And I know it's a lot to have all of this information presented to us, and this is truly is a landmark case. And so I will just go out there and say I know that Michael Huntington is in chat and he's saying looking forward to hearing some facts beyond speculation. And I'm not quite sure, Michael, if you didn't listen to the show last week, but if you have anything to add about some of the facts presented last week, then I would definitely say please ask in chat, because I think there was some pretty compelling information that was out there. That was presented. And I think, first of all, and we're going to get into this a little bit later, but some of the things that we kind of hold in high regard with this case, because it's what we've been told decade after decade, are the lie detector tests, specific information with, the timing and all of this and the people involved. And then when you start to break it down, there have been questions for a long time. And when we get Ryan Gordon back on the show, we are going to specifically address these questions. And again, I wanted to throw this, out here to people that are listening tonight. None of us here on this screen are debunkers. We're not skeptics. We are asking rational questions that all of you should be asking, and that the community, which is actually, I think in my opinion right now, it might be comprised of 20 people that maybe need to go to counseling and get over their anger management issues and learn how to ask thoughtful questions. Just saying. I'm a little, anyway, so it's going to be an interesting night. So anyway, I want to, just really quick before we get to Ryan Gordon, and then we're going to bring Charlie on for a moment. I want to ask you, Scott, what were your thoughts? Because this week has been, it hasn't been easy on you, on any of us, but except for Barry, because Barry was there through the MJ-12 controversy. But Scott, what are some of your thoughts very quickly about what transpired this week and what you saw with a few people in the UFO community?
Well, I'm used to, taking flack sometimes for, maybe if I look at a video and I tell somebody that I think it's CGI and, there'll be remarks, but it was nothing like this. This was super explosive. And, it just made me learn a lot about people, about how they're so entrenched in their beliefs. And some people just cannot pull themselves away. And every single person that was defending the case as valid had met the participants and spent time with them. And so my question to them is, just because you meet someone and you think, this person's a great person, you really have no idea how they are personally. You're not in their life. You don't know, it's it's not uncommon to have someone seem like an awesome person and then you realize this person's doing really bad stuff without anybody knowing it.
And I think that's a great point.
I'm not, I'm not accusing them of that. I'm just saying. So,
Right, and I think I agree. I mean, and I honestly, that's the thing that was so interesting to me. It's like people were basing their opinions off of personal experiences and not stepping back and looking at the case, and the new information presented. And that's again, I asked this last week from my recollection. I asked this a lot. Is this a social club? Are we just concerned about getting together and having friends we can pat on the back? Or are we doing something that is actually trying to move forward and get answers? And so, Scott, thank you so much for your comments. I'm going to now bring on Ryan Gordon, and so I'm going to add Ryan to the stream. And so, Ryan, thank you for being here
Hey,
again. You've had an interesting week, to
I
say the
have.
least.
I really have. I have to be honest. All the allegations about me were just that was kind of fun. I mean, between back helicopters and SUVs and everything else, it really had me cracking up. But at the end of the day, I sincerely want to thank you, Erica, for your support, for defending me, for the professionalism on your channel, and
Thank
just your
you.
professionalism in interacting with me and Scott as well. You guys were really great, and it makes me feel good to be able to talk about what I learned on your channel.
And I want to just, go on record and say, we have spent upwards of 30, 40 hours on the phone. You were
Yeah,
very, very forthright, and you showed me things to validate what you were saying, which I appreciate. And so, for those
you're
of you
welcome.
who are saying that this is something that is just being presented without people looking at what is going on, then I say I don't know what to tell you, but that's not the kind of research I do. So you have gone above and beyond. In fact, I remember when there was just a teeny, a question, and you were like, "Wait, let's go. Here we go. This is it." And I have never
Yeah.
in the history of me being in this subject publicly, I've never had anybody that has been that forthright, that open about things, and I really appreciate that. And that also probably goes to show that you are not a member of the UFO community.
No, I'm not. I remember, and I'm sure you'll touch on it here, but it seemed like a public denial from Travis Walton about me and in many different ways. And I remember speaking to you about it, and I could sense by your tone of voice that due to maybe perhaps PTSD with these UFO folks in the past, that I said, just come on. I had my phone and I said, let's get on FaceTime. Come on, let's go. Let's just
Right.
get this done. And I showed you uh, a tremendous amount of proof of my interactions with Mr. Walton.
You did, and thank you very much for doing that. And so for people that are just joining this because they clearly were slacking and didn't want to watch a 4 hour show last week, and I will say that was a long one. I mean, but it was well worth it. But I mean, start from and just give us a brief picture of how you got to know Travis, and then a little timeline to catch people up who are just coming in from tonight's episode.
Sure. So first, I want to say that I'm here in my RV, and there's a tremendous storm coming in, which kind of sucks. I'm in the Socorro area, and I have a dog that is just terrified of storms that's down here by my feet. So I'm sorry if it looks like I keep reaching down. I'm just trying to comfort her here. Anyhow, I want to start by saying that I remember being about 12 or 13 years old and reading the books by Whitley Strieber, Communion, and just being completely fascinated and wanting to really believe. I thought that he had a very compelling case. I hope he's still a good name within everybody here. I'm not really sure, but basically how I got involved with Travis was last May, so May of 2020. I had seen his film again, Fire in the Sky, and remembered how much I loved it. It's a fascinating film, and it takes place here in my state. I was a firm believer in this show 100% in Travis's story. And I thought that the show was so compelling that there was no reason to research. And I'm curious how many people here that are listening to this may have felt the same, because although the film was done in the 90s and perhaps the special effects weren't all that good, I felt that the writer Tracy Torme did just a tremendous job. So when I contacted Travis last May, it was purely to do a remake of his film. And I spent a tremendous amount of time with him, which for folks that have heard the audio of him and I speaking just a couple of days ago, he confirms. We had a great phone call, and we've always got along really well. But to kind of circle back to your question, our relationship was professional, and I was really looking forward to remaking his film. I think you're on mute still, Erica.
Okay, one of these days. But thank you. So I think an interesting thing is that most people are overlooking is the fact that, oh, your poor baby, there's a thunderstorm coming in. And I think that's what people in the chat room were mentioning, that they're hearing a little dog bark, but there's a storm coming in. So one thing that I will say, that when you spoke, about Travis, you said that you had a great fondness for him, that you liked him. That was very evident in the conversation that was recorded. And I wanted to say that this has been an interesting week as well, because there were several statements made by Travis, and in those statements, and I'm going to bring Scott back on. So Scott, are you there? Can you pull up the statements and read the statements that were put forward after the show this week?
The first one is, I have never been a part of Ryan Gordon and Michael Rogers' supposed hoax video. I stand by everything we experienced, and for years have been 100% involved in the creation of a remake of the original Fire in the Sky movie. I have never personally met Mike's partner, Ryan Gordon.
Okay, and then can you also read the other statement that he made? Is there another statement there?
Yeah, there's a second one here. Mr. Ryan Gordon, who tape records everything, show me even one text or soundbite where I entertained your dumb view of this incident. Fraudulent claims.
And so, Ryan, when you saw that after spending time with Travis and things, I mean, how did that make you feel, or can you comment on that?
I'd be happy to. I was shocked. I thought, this is ridiculous, because I have as you saw, Erica, a tremendous amount of proof to disqualify what he said. But at the end of the day, I've tried to, after all the accusation between him and Mike as well, tried to maintain a sense of professionalism that's really important to me. And that's why I was on your show even last week, was to defend my name. But if you look at my response back, I'm asking him to sign a waiver, email me and sign a waiver that I can speak, because he's saying basically show proof. And I have to have a waiver to do so. And of course, in there I mention Gentry. I mention some other things which we're certainly not going to discuss, but something dealing with I-5, a little boy named Jonas, and a girl named Deborah. So I mean, it was an unfortunate series of events. But when I did speak to him on the phone, I thought that it was really interesting. I felt really confused because he said that somebody else was using his phone, his Facebook. And it made me question, who is using your phone? Who's typing this stuff? Who is coming after me? Because for anybody who heard that call, it was a great call.
Well, and Lion Ryan, I mean, you were called Lion Ryan, and there was another Facebook post and things. And so, you know, that was really interesting. And I just want to respond because, again, I see so many great people in chat asking questions.
Sure.
And Anna is there and talking about, you know, the fact that it seems like a drama and a mess happening, which is so sad. And Anna, what I can tell you is unfortunately the UFO community, this whole field is subject to people that are taking advantage of it. And sometimes in order to weed out hoaxes, to weed out people that are taking advantage of other people, to weed out things that we don't need for this serious study to move forward, it becomes this, and that's sad. And I want to just also state that it is sad that the people who have been in a position of authority in this subject, who have been on the speaking circuit for decades, have never had the courage to actually speak out on this and call people out when they know that there is a problem. And so I think that's, you know, I mean, yeah, there is a drama and a mess taking place, but this is a drama and a mess that has been created by the people who have not been truthful. And so that's what I'm going to say. And so, and I will ask Michael your questions here in a little bit. So Ryan, let's get back to, do you want to play the phone call, or is there a place where we can send people to find the link? I had somebody, a Red Pill Junkie in chat, say that the two links to the phone calls were not available publicly and that perhaps they were taken down. Is that the case?
Sure. So let me backstep there just for a second. And it's really important to me that everybody recognize that Travis Walton is a client of mine. We have professional agreements, and during my time tonight, I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend that. I'm not here to invite any sort of trouble. I also think it's really unprofessional to speak poorly about anybody. So if people are here to hear me speaking poorly about somebody, it's not going to happen. That's not why I'm here. In regard to the videos, they're still on my YouTube channel. They are marked unlisted because I'm trying to slowly back away from all of this. I need to move on with my own life. I've been working on this project since May of last year, and after tonight on this, I won't be speaking about the UFO topic or Travis Walton or any of this anymore. So what you see is me slowly fading away. I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this drama at all. And but there's one thing from making the content searchable on YouTube, and there's another, like Mr. Schaefer, who has this on his blog. Scott has posted it. Various people have posted, whether it be the Mike Rogers hoax confession or the call that I had with Mr. Travis Walton. They're still there. And the people that are watching those anyway are coming off of direct links. So I didn't assume that it would be a problem. So I'm sorry, Red Pill Junkie, if you thought that was suspicious. I think that it'd only be suspicious if I had removed them altogether.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. I really appreciate it. And so now I want to, Ryan, if it's okay, because you have had a person that has been involved with this kind of, who was in chat, who also has a website.
Did you want to play the call before you
would
move
like
on to Charlie?
Would you like to?
Yeah, so because I have the screen sharing on, for some reason as we tried before, this won't work. So Scott, if you don't mind, it seemed that worked earlier for the folks that would like to hear the call. And while that's playing, if you don't mind, dear, if you would minimize my screen or this, so I can take care of my dog here for a second.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So Scott is going to pull up the phone call, and let me just preface this. This was the phone call that was taken after some of the allegations were made on Facebook and social media about the two parties not knowing each other. So we can play that.
Here we go.
Okay.
Hello. Hey, Travis, it's Ryan Gordon. I'm hoping that we can talk here for a second. Would that be okay? Hey, I'm really hoping we can have a conversation without screaming. I mean, that would certainly be nice. I saw your comments on the Facebook last night, and I've always said publicly, and even to you, that I've always really appreciated your professionalism and the way that you and I have always interacted over the past bit. I think that you and I are on the same page here when it comes to Rogers. I will admit that everything you said to me about him, you tried to warn me. I guess first most want to issue you an apology. You're right. I probably should have believed you quite some time ago. Quite delusional. It really is. I don't know. I like you and I talked about on our last phone call, where I said it felt like I was talking to a couple that was going through a divorce. What the heck? What the heck, Travis? Well, it's embarrassing to me, but yeah, he is obsessed on an individual basis like that. Why though? Why? I mean, I'm encouraged. Yeah, but what? I mean, can we both agree that you and I have always got along pretty well? We've never had any shouting match. We've never been called. I mean, you and I have always got along fine. Doesn't achieve anything. But in his case, he is so the way he is in so many ways, and one of them being he must be right. Yes. And anyone who challenges his rightness is really fucked up in a really basic way. That's the first time I've heard you swear. Yeah. That's the way he thinks, you know. I normally don't. There was a post that you had made last night. Was that really you last night, by the way, typing all that stuff? Or did you have somebody using your phone? Because I've never seen you angry like that before. I was, I had some help, but yeah. Yeah, actually did be good. Anyhow, there was a post that I do believe came from you that you were, assuming it was you typing it, where Mike had said, because I refused to answer his question, that automatically makes me guilty. And I do 100% believe you made the response saying just because somebody makes a response or does not make a response, that doesn't make them guilty. So I want to thank you for publicly trying to defend me. I guess that's logical. I mean, yes. Say, well, I put this out there, and if he won't answer me, then he should. Right. Thank you. Right. Thank you for defending me, because that's. I mean, again, you and I have always got along just fine. So, the intent of this call is to say you were right. You were right. I was wrong. It's not just me that's making these observations. Just about everybody who knows. You're right on that as well. I know that the way that I met him out there at the site there at Turkey Springs was bizarre. I mean, I was out there with film crew. He's out there with some MUFON thing, which I think I've already told you before. He shouldn't be doing that anyway. I mean, he's under contract. He can't be out filming with a competitive source, but whatever. That's what he was doing. And I have consistently said to Mike, leave Travis alone. Leave him alone. Like, what is it? He's constantly after you. He was after me for quite long, a week, 10 days or whatever. Yeah. But I feel your pain. I emailed you twice, I think yesterday and the day before, because you remember the email that you sent me where you said, were you at my house at 6 a.m? Yeah. Yeah. I thought, what the hell, Travis? Why are you asking me if I'm at your house?
That was a paranoid delusion that Mike said, you know.
Yeah.
And so what was Ryan Gordon being at your house is
right.
Saying?
Right. Like, so I told you, Travis, what the hell am I going what am I going to go to your house for? Like, that's stupid. I'm down in the valley. I'm going to sit in front of your house. But here's the thing, Travis. I sent you an email where I said, here's the pictures that were taken that Mike had publicly posted on Facebook. And, I mean, talk about a low blow. Let's be real. I mean, you could probably clean up your house a bit better. Let's be real.
Well,
but
yeah,
he doesn't have to post that on.
It's a mess. It's a mess. But
I know.
Everybody has to ask themselves.
I know.
Why is he doing this?
Well, I
what kind of person would drive 40 miles just
why was your house a mess? I have no idea. But I don't care that your house is a mess. I've been there. I don't really care.
I'm saying that's not the point. It's important to him to let the world know.
Well, as we both know, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, and thank you for having a great conversation with me about this, but Mike will do anything to throw you under the bus. Yeah, anything. And you and I talked about this. We talked for 2 hours, 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was, and we were both of the same persuasion that we were wondering, does Mike have some kind of weird gay homosexual thing going on with you? I don't know. I have no idea.
I don't know. It's weird. It's when he says, "Oh, I did that just to get your attention."
Well, I guess he got your attention.
Okay. Well, what man does anything to get another man's attention?
I would agree. I would agree. In fact, and again, not to be repetitive, but it makes me feel better that you verify that you were the one that was sending or putting those messages on Facebook last night. Because again, like, I like you. If you watched my show with Erica Lukes, I was defending you the entire time.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I'm not out here some let's destroy Travis Walton thing. Like
So that's certainly where Mike's coming from.
Well, I know that, Travis, and I guess that's why I'm calling you. That's why we're having this discussion, because if the public were to read the statements made, it's like Ryan Gordon is some asshole son of a bitch lying sack of shit, and here I can talk to you just fine. You and I get along just fine. You and I are on the same page. So
I must be pretty good at talking with someone who is pure evil.
Yeah, I guess so, right? I guess so. Anyhow, that's really all I wanted to say is that I know that you and I are not going to work together. And I want to sincerely thank you for the time that we were able to spend together, for everything that you entrusted me with. I did, because I wasn't sure if that was you last night. So I'm making a post. Okay, well then sign a waiver. But I don't want to pick a fight with you. I've talked with you substantially. I respect you. I'm not going to say anything.
Well, I don't want to pick a fight with I don't even want to pick a fight with Mike. I prefer.
Yeah, but let's just let this go.
Ignore him
Well, I don't know. Does ignoring even work with Mike Rogers? I mean, you got 45 plus years of experience.
You're right. You're right.
Does it work?
People keep advising me to ignore him. And
well, you and I talked about getting a restraining order. I think you emailed me about it, that maybe you and I both have an order against him. The guy is freaking insane, man.
And, you know, the idea that, well, I made this statement, and if they don't affirm it, then
I know. I got so used to this with him. I don't read his Facebook every day. I don't think you do either. But yeah, through and through, Travis, I really mean it when I say thank you. Thank you for everything. I really enjoy you. I have nothing bad to say about you. I appreciate the opportunity that you gave me to remake Fire in the Sky. And I sincerely, from the bottom of my heart,
want to wish you the best. Fire in the Sky. I thought we were doing a documentary, super documentary.
Either way, I would always call it a remake of the film because I knew that's what you were looking for. But through and through, I don't want to get into some long thrown out thing with you. I really, you and I have always spoken very courteously to each other, very professional. And the intent of this call is to say thank you. Thank you for everything.
And so let's keep it that way.
Yeah, let's keep it that way. All right. Take care. I hope I to see you around sometime. Yeah, and if I do, I'll be shaking your hand. Okay?
You have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Travis. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that is a pretty interesting phone call, and I want to just address somebody in the chat.
30 seconds is up.
That was, and there's, I think somebody's got a background. Hang on one second. So I think that, well, there was an accusation that Ryan was lying that was made on Facebook about the association between Travis and himself. And so I just want to again address this to Michael out there who's saying, is it not unethical, and I'm just paraphrasing here, that somebody was recording this without the other person's knowledge. And so, I mean, Ryan, let me ask you, because, I mean, obviously there was a statement on Facebook. I mean, so where do you draw the line, Michael? I'm asking you this, between what's ethical and what's not. And Brian, how would you respond?
So I whenever I'm interacting with a client from the get-go, I let them know that all communications with me are recorded. They know that. Everybody that I've worked with since forever. And it's not an issue, as assuming that really was Travis on Facebook, which who knows which posts, maybe he made some, maybe didn't make any. But it does say Mr. Ryan, who records everything.
Right,
So,
right. He did say that in a social media post. Right. Absolutely.
But no, I don't. I don't think it's unprofessional when you're letting somebody know if you're sneaking around and doing things on the down low. But that's a different conversation. I've never done that. Mike and Travis had both known they've been recorded.
Absolutely. Okay. So thank you very, very much. And so just to kind of recap this, because there are a few people entering chat that want to know
Sure.
what the kind of the summary is of, what this conversation is about and why we are here. So Ryan, if you could just take that away for a brief moment.
Sure. So I guess to just step back a couple of minutes, May of 2020, I approached Mr. Travis Walton about doing a remake of his film. As you can hear on that call there, he knew about it. We had a great relationship. Unfortunately, things didn't work out, and that's not something I'm going to discuss. But you can hear that our last phone call ended well. The intent of me being on here now is exactly what I told Travis there. I'm not here to badmouth anybody, but instead it is to relay my experiences of interacting with people that have arguably one of the largest UFO stories in the world, the globe. And it seems that there's a tremendous amount of interest in what I have to say. And want to thank people for that. And I hope that you'll be impressed with what I have to deliver. I would love to answer folks' questions. I have come to learn that this story is very important to a lot of people. And I understand it's a very sensitive topic to a lot of people. So I want to make sure that my delivery and how I share what I have is done in a very respectful way.
Right, and absolutely, and it is, and so you've got people in chat saying, just asking questions, which they should, and I think this is great, but people
Sure.
want to know about, what, I mean, we've got somebody in here asking about what, your professional career and what you did prior
Sure.
to this.
So I've already been doxxed on that, which is unfortunate, and another reason that I'm stepping away from this community. I've worked in entertainment for over 20 years, and I've never been doxxed before.
And that is really sad. And I will say, can you name the person that doxed you? I mean, which
I don't want to get into
okay.
name calling.
All right, and
I
it's
don't.
not name
But
calling, but I will just say this because I think it's important. I looked at that person, the alleged fake profile that did that, and I actually find that pretty amazing that somebody
That was Ralph.
would do that.
I'm nervous to talk about the other projects I've worked on, because unfortunately another tactic that has been accomplished, I guess, about me is I've had people going through my Facebook and emailing my friends on Facebook asking if I'm counter ops, like this UFO. It's just, I mean, my friends are reading this stuff and like, what the heck is going on? I'm sure that anybody can relate. So they're also trying to dig up information about my professional career. And the last thing I need is a bunch of zealots, overbearing people contacting people I work with about, counter ops and black helicopters and stuff. It's not okay.
Well, and this is what I want to say to Lilo. She says dox, you don't want to promote your films. Lilo, this is a little bit more than doxing. These are people sending threatening messages. These are people doing things that would be considered cyberbullying. These are things that have happened in the past week that are not okay. So I think that's a little flippant to say, dox, don't you want to promote your films? There's a little bit more going on than that. So anyway, Ryan, thank you.
No. Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Absolutely. And so,
But at the end of the day, if this helps, all of my work was shown to every client that I work with, and my accolades can be viewed. For people that have already hacked into my Facebook, you see me pictures with lots of different high-profile people in the entertainment industry. I'm surprised, but probably the pictures are somewhere. So I guess search harder.
So obviously, yeah, and it's interesting because we definitely have a few trolls in chat tonight, which cracks me up. But anyway, that's fine. I would expect that with such a hot topic. So anyway, I
guess I'll respond here to this, Lilo.
Right.
I'm not here to promote myself. I'm not here to promote my films. I'm not here for any of that. This is not a press piece for me to be here. And I see that you're if you want to call Bolt BS, that's okay. I'm here for I'm here to talk about a story, and that's really it. I'm not here as a way to promote myself. I'm already doing quite well in that regard.
Right, and of course we would see the same bullying crowd here in chat tonight. So I find that very interesting, Dave Altman. So I want to just get back to. Just a little bit about.
No, it's okay with this Portal Twins. It's okay. And if you've listened to the interview at all and what I've had to say tonight, you'll realize this is the last interview, because you're probably right. I can't handle your UFO community, and I'm okay with that.
Right, and again, I want to just say that Dave, Portal Twins, Lilo, Mark. I mean, all of you. I mean, that's great that you get in here and do this, but if you want to actually ask some questions about the information that was put forward last week, then I would suggest you do that. And otherwise you can just sit on there and hide behind your whatever you're doing and do this. And I want to just emphasize the fact that there have been people over the past week that have been very kind and have shared the show from last week, and they have been bullied by online trolls, and I think that's really unfortunate. And so, yeah, I would just say, yeah, shame on you guys in chat, whoever you are. But anyway, you must feel good about yourselves. So, I want to ask Ryan, why were Mike and MUFON out at the site at the exact same date and time that you were?
Sure. So, Mike was out there doing a prearranged filming for a MUFON project, the White Mountain chapter of MUFON, I believe. And I was out there with the producer reviewing the site.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And so now
Sure.
I want to really quickly just bring on, because Michael is asking, and I know a lot of people have actually asked about Charlie. And so is that okay if we bring Charlie on just to,
Yeah, she's great.
Okay, so
I like her quite a bit.
So hopefully Charlie is here, and we know that there has been a rumor that Charlie is actually you, Ryan, and so maybe that. Obviously, we know when we talk to Charlie that might not be the case. So hopefully, Charlie, you're there. I didn't throw you off base.
I am here, and I'm not Ryan. Hi, Ryan. And thank you, Erica, for asking me to come on.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think I would like, first of all, for you to talk about your connection to Ryan.
When did I first hear from Ryan? A couple of days after he posted Mike's confession video. I already had a website about the Travis Walton case and another case, the Hills case, which I had made a few weeks before that, I think. He saw my website and contacted me about it, and we discussed theories. That's kind of how it went. I don't know, is that how it happened, Ryan? Can you remember?
Yeah, so there was a guy that goes by the name of Norio, Japanese last name. I'm going to butcher it, so I'm not going to even try. But he had posted a link on his channel or his Facebook about you, so you're complimenting your work. And I went to check it out, and then I sent you an email saying that you're so close. And I believe that's how we would start interacting.
Yeah, I was looking at the graphic that you had uploaded with that video, which had the fire tower on it, and it kind of put me in a new direction, because until then I had thought I thought it was a hoax, but I thought they were using a big paper hot air balloon that you could buy back in the day. And that set me on a whole new exploration of fire towers, basically, and what they are, where they are, the history of them. And we both discussed it. And of course, you knew more than I did at that point. You had other theories and I had them, and we kind of figured it out, I think. I think we figured it out. And you're going to present evidence today about that. So,
yeah, I guess at the end of the day, I'm not really worried about figuring it out so much when I was walked through the site by members of the crew.
That's pretty compelling.
It absolutely is very compelling, and I just wanted to say really quickly, Charlie, I know that you're using a pseudonym, and I just want to, for the record, just talk a little bit about that, because that will be something that will be brought up. So why do you choose to use a pseudonym? I probably should have, clearly.
Sounds like you should have. I am a skeptic, what you would call a skeptic in your community, and I've been a skeptic, not so much about UFOs, which hasn't really interested me too much, except as a side thing. I'm more interested in the skeptical community in general, religion, paranormal. And so I've been online on forums for 20 years talking about that. I've always used a pseudonym. I just always have. Not this one, a different one, different ones. So it was natural for me to do that. I think it was a good decision, considering what you've talked about that's been going on the last week. I'm completely, this is a baptism by fire for me to be thrust into this community, because I wouldn't say I wasn't expecting what I got, but it just makes me thankful that I did use a pseudonym. I really think that the evidence on my site and I guess, what Ryan is going to present, but the evidence of the other cases that I've done as well, I think that speaks for itself. It doesn't really matter who I am. I'm using sources that I found online. Anyone can find them. My aim with the website is to present it in a way that's easily digestible, and because people don't want to go back and read 400 pages of the original sources, so I did it, and I've tried to, that's why I made the website. It doesn't matter who I am. I'm a mum in Melbourne. That's really. Would you need to know anything else? That's it. That's who I am.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that out there because that is something that I have been asked, and so now I want to get to, because Ryan, you have put together a very incredible presentation, and so let's get that going. I appreciate the time that you have spent doing that, and I also want to just give a shout out before we start going to the people that support UFO Classified that have been there for years, that are Patreons to the show. We got a great donation tonight, which helps keep us on the air, and that is a good thing because, in my opinion, this is the only place where you can actually find the truth, where people are wanting to find the truth and not just promoting things that are absolute nonsense, and people that promoting things that sites and people that are making money in the UFO community that aren't willing to stand up when things are wrong and ask questions, because that's not what we need. So thank you for all of those who are supporting the show. So Ryan, let's get back to, and thank you, the High Lonesome, and thank you, and he said, Ryan, thank you for your excellent work. And so Ryan, let's try to do this and share the screen, which could be very exciting. Are you groovy?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready when you are. It's just it's in the share screen is in the waiting room.
Okay, hang on. So we'll see how this works. And thank you again for your patience, my friends. So I'm going to share the screen. And so can you see that?
My share screen is still in the waiting room. There we go. I think maybe, yep, there we go.
Okay.
All right. Oops. Hold on just a second. Okay, so I have prepared a presentation. Is this showing up on the screen okay, or is it still doing that weird kaleidoscope thing?
It kind of is a little bit doing the kaleidoscope thing. And so if anybody has thoughts on that, I'm still new to all of this, and so Mario, Scott, have you guys figured that out? And anybody in there, can you figure that out? Oh dear. Hang on one second. Barry, I'm adding you to the stream, so I'm going to try to figure out with Travis, and then Scott, if you can also try to figure out what's happening. So Barry, wake up, because we gotta. So Ryan, Scott, Mario, if you could figure out how to get that in there so we can share the screen. So thank you. And I would like to restart it, but it's good if I restart it. That could be a problem. Okay, so is there another way? Can you guys think of how to share that? Nope. Okay, Barry. Anyway, your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I want to see all the visuals, of course, but some of that was shown last week too. I was very impressed with it when it was shown, and I thought there was some very compelling arguments given as to the story not quite being what was originally told. Oh, is that it?
Yep, that's it. Okay, praise
There you go.
the Lord above. The clouds parted, and Ryan is here with his slideshow.
Weird. So what happened? Did it just magically come up, or?
It did, actually.
All right. Okay, so what I wanted to do here is I'm gonna start and just do like a full walkthrough of what this show is. I'm starting with this Benny and Barty Hill case, this show called the UFO Incident. I pulled this information off of Wikipedia, and you'll see that it originally aired on October 20th, 1975. That date is important because it's roughly 2 weeks before the incident with my poor dog here. Give me a second. I apologize.
No. I know you've got a huge thunderstorm
pouring.
coming
Yeah,
in.
it's
Wow.
pouring, right?
Your poor baby.
I'm sure you guys can hear her back here, just driving me nuts.
Oh,
Anyhow,
sweet little thing.
I apologize for that. For me, when I'm putting something together, I want to start at the very beginning and know the story to the best of my ability from A to Z. So the first incident that I could find, and this research was done during my time with these folks, but October 20th, a lot of people don't know about this connection here, the UFO incident on NBC. This here that I have in the middle, obviously did a saucer story come from a movie. This is a quote or a statement from this Undersheriff Copeland, where he told the Phoenix Gazette that more than ever, and this Sheriff Copeland, by the way, is the one that was on the case, just underneath Sheriff Gillespie, that Kaplan noted that Walton and the 6 witnesses who say they saw a UFO and light beam all had seen an October 20th television movie based on a similar incident. Then clarifying what that incident was, the same part of this article. The movie, the UFO incident, was shown over NBC TV and told about a couple taken aboard a flying saucer by humanoids from another planet. Copeland said, "It's just too much to buy. There are so many similarities between Walton's story and that television show." I find that to be fascinating because obviously Under Sheriff Copeland has firsthand access to this. Although Heber, Arizona is a somewhat small town, or Navajo County in general, this sheriff still is a highly respected guy, and I found his comment to be interesting. So of course I went and looked at it as well. For anybody that would like to source that, it was written Thursday, November 13th, 75 in the Phoenix Gazette. This picture I have over here to the right, this comes from the IMDb page of the UFO incident. It's just an interesting similarity at a minimum. What was happening about that same time was a $100,000 reward by the Inquirer. Now, I was not able, in full transparency, to find the actual article. So what I did is I used this one here, where the prize had been increased to $1 million, but this was post and after the Walton case. But it does say here that they are increasing the reward from $100,000 previously offered by the Inquirer up to the 1 million. So that is a very verifiable source for me to have verified this $100,000 reward. Also of note is it wasn't just the $100,000 that the Inquirer was offering. They also doubled the reward on what they called the most scientifically valuable evidence on UFOs. So I'm not sure how many people know that there was actually 2 contests with sizable rewards at the end. I do want to clarify, because I was told there was a bit of confusion about this, and not wanting to jump ahead, but since we're here on the topic of the Inquirer, I want to make it really clear that the Walton and the crew did not win the $100,000. They only were rewarded $5,000, but we'll touch on that more as we continue. Again, as building a profile, not only for the characters, but the story at large, we need to look into other aspects of who we're working with. Unfortunately, Travis Walton and Mike Rogers' older brother did some really stupid stuff. As we can read here, they were charged with check fraud and forgery. A lot of people don't know this either. What had happened is Charles Rogers, that's Mike Rogers' older brother, worked at, I want to say, we have it in here as a source because I don't want to, Western Molding in Snowflake, Arizona. And they had stolen a payroll checkbook. Travis had worked there, Charles Rogers had worked there, and they literally, as relayed to me by the crew during my time with them, the intent was to run off to Florida. And by doing so, they had taken this checkbook and they got as far as Texas before they were actually apprehended. Travis Walton was placed on a 2-year probation. What had happened is the judge was pretty lenient, and would allow them, after doing restitution for the money stolen, that they would be able to go back in court and plead not guilty, in which the judge would accept that plea. So very lucky. I want to be really clear. People make mistakes all the time, myself included, and probably everybody watching. So this is not to defame anybody's character. We're just building a profile here. The other thing that comes up frequently is the Forest Service contract that Mike Rogers had. I found it to be really interesting, this information between Mike Rogers and the Forest Service. So what's happening is, and the date on this, October 16th, 75, and less than 3 weeks before the UFO incident, what had happened is Mike Rogers had previously asked for an 84-day extension on his contract. You have somebody from the office named Contracting Officer Rep Tom Hentz. They go out and make checks on the site, not in particular to this story, of course, but just in general. That's their job. And when he was at the site, this is his exact statement. Contractor has completed approximately 15 acres of a fuel break in Lot D since the last payment was made on October 2nd. So 2 weeks before this October 16th date. Skipping ahead, and I'll make this public for anybody that'd like to have this presentation. But the part that's interesting to me here, skipping forward one sentence, outside of their saying that the work had been slow, 80% of the time extension had passed, and only 31% of the work had been completed. Ideally, I think everybody would agree with me that these numbers should be pretty close to each other, the 80 and the 31. What this says to me in building a profile is there is an issue at the job site. On October 20th, the same day that the UFO incident comes out on TV, Mike Rogers writes back, and he wants to defend his position, and his quote basically says, I'm writing to tell you personally of our progress on the Turkey Springs thinning. I can honestly say that whether or not we finish on time or not, I cannot honestly say whether or not, my goodness, we will finish on time or not. However, we are working every day with as much manpower as I can hire. I will not stop until the job is finished. or until I'm asked to stop. I have had considerable trouble keeping a full crew on this job. The area is very thick, and the guys have very poor morale because of it. I have had to break in several green men. Now, before anybody tries to run with that, they're not talking about aliens like a green hand, a green man. This is like a newbie, somebody new to the industry. I also want to make a point here with the Forest Service contract that after the UFO incident on the 5th, Mike Rogers never went back to work. I'm pointing this out because that's in stark contrast to what Rogers says. Again, we need to verify credibility with this story. We're asked to believe something very fantastic. Moving on from that, McCarthy, who was the person who did the polygraph on Travis had admitted that he had issues with recreational drugs, from pot, marijuana, to speed, which is methamphetamine, and LSD. This was also noted in the report by Ground Saucer Watch, a very pro-UFO organization, that Travis had also admitted to using recreational drugs, frequently experimenting with them. This, again, is not to make any tremendous judgment on anything, but again, building a character profile of who are we working with. Going now to the day of November 5th. This is the hoax confession that I was offered. My takeaway hearing this, and to spend a little bit more time now that Mike has publicly said that they're not accusing me of manipulating this anymore, which was just ridiculous, is they're talking about creating a UFO hoax. And that stands out for me, so you guys can get into a bit of my head, I suppose, because of this. This is a great baseline, and because of this, and because of this. Oops. So we have motive, we have method, we have a fantastic reason, and we've got a great reward. Again, this is verified as a hoax by Mike Rogers 2 or 3 months ago on the 30th of April. I'm going to come back to this quote to explain it more, because there has been a lot of questions. Of course, I have talked to Mike Rogers about this, and I want to be on the record before we continue further, is Mike Rogers has fully retracted this statement. I don't believe him. I have other evidence to know that the retraction was phony, but I do want to say that he has retracted his statement, and I believe his exact words were, "There is no way this could have been hoaxed." So just want to be on the record with that one. This is also November 5th. This is Steve Pierce, who is one of the loggers that day. And I found it really fascinating that on the day of this alleged abduction, this alleged alien incident, that Steve Pierce, his memory says that Travis was gone for most of the day. Where do they go? He also testifies, or his statement is, Mike Rogers was gone for about 2 hours. I found it interesting. You know, Steve Pierce has always really stood up for the truth with this. And of course, he has denounced Travis's story altogether with this. But he says that in the book, Travis Walton's Fire in the Sky, that we're used to, that they had worked hard all day. And he's saying Travis didn't do one thing all day. He stayed in the truck. He stayed in the truck all day. He was sick. He was supposed to be sick. So again, building profile. So we have a tremendous reward, and we have the crew noticing that something is at a minimum amiss. So what I'm going to try to do, because I can't the only thing I can see on my screen is this. I can't see the chat window. I'm hoping, Erica, that perhaps, every 5 to 7 slides we can pause.
Sure.
And if there's any questions that I could help clarify.
Absolutely, and thank you. I want to ask a question from Red Pill Junkie. How many
Sure.
surviving members of the crew have you talked to? And have you mentioned Steve and Ken in the previous show? What about John?
So to be clear, my professional relationship is only with Travis Walton and Mike Rogers.
Okay.
I have not formally interviewed the other cast. Unfortunately, we did not make it that far in this journey.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just going through to see if there are any other questions, but that looks good for now. So please, continue. This is good stuff.
Okay. Okay, so moving on from that, again, in this character profile building, I think everybody would agree with me that seeing a UFO is incredibly rare, if at all, for most people. It's really weird how much the UFOs love the Walton family. It really is. So starting over here from the left, this is from an article in the Payson Roundup. The date on this article, let me expand this out, November 13th, 1975. One woman who asked not to be identified because of her government job said Travis came to her recently all excited because he had just been chased through the forest by a UFO. That's interesting. It says that he came to her recently. What does that mean? A month, a day, a couple of days? I don't know. But this incident with the November 5, the fire in the sky, is not the first time that Travis has interacted with the government in reporting a UFO. Mr. Sang Flank there's this Marshal of Snowflake. This is a really fascinating quote. And again, the date of this being November the 13th. He is not hesitant to express his disbelief of the Walton story. He predicted Monday that one of these days, Travis is going to come walking in here with a wild story about a ride in a flying saucer. Like, what? Flake believes the incident was engineered by the brothers. This is a thing. Go ahead.
And that is a thing that is out there for everyone to see.
And it's not just Travis that has had experiences.
And so I just say, Red Pill Junkie is in here saying, are we now using anonymous claims against Travis? We should stick to verifiable facts. So I'm not sure what specifically Miguel is referring to.
I think she's probably assuming that's a female. I'm not really sure, but it's because a government employee has asked not to be identified.
Okay.
I just reading from a newspaper article as part of research. This is an article from 1975, and for me, this helps build a character profile. I sure it's entirely fake that this is a bogus statement. But you have to ask yourself, what is more believable? That somebody was chased by a UFO repeatedly or a government official lied? That's a decision you have to make. Moving forward from that, down here to this next is part of the same article. UFO experiences are not new to Dwayne and Travis. Several persons in Snowflake told the Roundup on Monday. They reportedly have talked extensively about wanting to ride in a flying saucer. See, this is a thing that most people that are firm believers in any subject, because you are fully invested in a subject, that doesn't mean that somebody else may not be. And in this case, we're hearing from people that don't want to be on the record talking about UFOs in small town USA in 1975.
Right.
For me, I don't think that's odd at all.
And I want to just kind of say, because I love reading the chat, but clearly you're being accused of spreading propaganda because you're sitting here showing news reports and news clippings that are all a matter of, and they're all on the record. They're all out there. But I guess that's propaganda.
Propaganda pieces. This would be a great. Hey Barry, what's the dictionary definition of propaganda?
Oh, Barry, we've got to unmute you. Hang on. Okay, propaganda.
Oh, propaganda. I give me about 10 minutes and I can get one for you.
Sweet. Okay.
Anyhow, again, when we're building character profiles in the entertainment business, we are looking for public perception of an event. That's it. And again, I find these to be useful in my gathering of evidence. Fred Sylvanus, I believe folks have heard of that, or excuse me, heard of him. He is quoting Mike Rogers here. I saw one almost identical to what they, meaning Mike Rogers and the other crew, described for a period of almost 30 minutes in broad daylight about 12 years ago at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, about 8 miles from this location right here, meaning the site where Travis was allegedly abducted. And it followed me around these woods for about 30 minutes. It was never more than 200 feet away from me at any time. This is a direct quote, obviously, that has a name, and I think that I like the subject or the title of this slide is that UFOs definitely love the Walton family. I found this quote, and this is also in speaking with Fred Sylvanus, where Travis and I discussed this many times at great length. And we both said that we would immediately get as directly under the object, meaning the UFO, as physically possible. We discussed this time and time again. The opportunity would be too great to pass up, and at any cost except for that of death, make contact with them and whoever happened to be left on the ground. If one of us didn't make the grade, to try to convince whoever was in charge of the craft to come back and get the other one. He, meaning Travis, performed just as we said we would, and he got directly under the object, and he's received the benefits for it. As the slide says, UFOs love the Waltons, and I find it to be fascinating. You know, Erica, you've been in this community for quite some time. Have you ever run into another group of people that have so many experiences repeatedly like this?
I mean, no. And I definitely will ask Barry about that when we bring him back in, because Barry is the historian and archivist who knows more than most people on the planet about this subject. But it is highly unusual to have all of these events and people wanting to have UFO experiences and this on the record. So, yeah, I think
absolutely.
That is unusual.
Let me ask a question while we wait for Barry, and we're going to get into Gentry here next. But let me pull back up the chat window because I'm just fascinated to hear.
Let me add Barry back in really quickly. So Barry, we've got lots of great people interacting on the chat that are talking about propaganda. But Barry, just in a brief nutshell, talk about propaganda.
Well, the book definition of propaganda is information, especially of a biased or misleading nature, used to promote or publicize a particular political cause or point of view. And I think you could arguably say ufology is politics, just a small department of the bigger topic.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Ryan.
Okay, so let's. I'm just reading here, just going up the chat. Drew Williamson. Yeah, you're absolutely right, and thanks for posting this here. Material disseminated by advocates or opponents of a doctrine or cause. Systematic effort to propagate or win support for a theory or method of action. I would say that a lot of news networks today, whether it be CNN or Fox, are definitely that propaganda. But we're talking about a small town USA newspaper in 1975. And I don't know why we're even derailing on a topic of propaganda here. about a small town newspaper
I know
about people in
it's
the town that are having
I know,
experiences.
but this is what people go to. That this is propaganda when you're actually presenting information that is out there and available to the public. But
I again, this is
UFO
this is
community
not
for you.
this is not a this is a small town USA newspaper. If you think small town USA newspapers are propaganda, it doesn't sound like you're affirming your theory is what you think.
Right. Let me just address Lilo again. So newspaper comments are not evidence. No, but this is I would think what Ryan is doing is promoting or presenting a storyline here for you. So that would be good for you to get. Okay, Brian, keep
It's
please.
super fascinating that people are having a really hard time. I think just a couple of minutes ago I was accused of having really thin skin, and I find it super interesting that people are having a breakdown that I'm reading newspaper articles.
I know. Well,
Anyway, let's move on.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's move on. All right. So we're going to go into Gentry right now, which I know is why most people are here. But again, the way that I work and when I'm putting things together is to build a character profile, and I think that's incredibly important. Is everybody still there? It looks like everybody just left the chat. Are we good?
I'm here. I don't know what just happened though. I had a little power issue.
Okay, no worries. Can you see my screen and everything still?
I can't see your screen.
It's the Dark Cabal. They're getting us.
I know. God, I hate that. Well, actually, isn't that us, though? I thought that we were the Dark Cabal. Clearly consorting with Lou Elizondo and things to discredit abduction cases. That's what I've heard. Okay, so
I blame it on Charlie. She's always to blame when anything goes bad.
So, well, let me try.
Let me stop my screen share and come back.
Okay.
All right, so let's go. Sure. Okay, looks like we're good. So let's go straight into Gentry, and I want to spend a lot of time here, and I'm hoping for a lot of interaction with people in the comments section about this. We are going to start with video file 5912 over here on my side. Let me minimize this so it's a tad bit easier. Let's see. Can you guys see it when I pop up the screen on here? Or are we having more technical issues because they're not showing up for me? Can you hear me, Erica? Are we good or?
No, I can, and I can see Gentry Discovery 5912.
Okay, so now we're at this is funny. We need to figure out this screen sharing thing because
right now I mean
now
your
it's not
is up.
It's not letting me. It's not letting me play proof. This is so funny. Newspaper clips are not proof. I love seeing all these comments over here.
I know.
They would be proof if it was about a UFO abduction.
I know. Isn't that funny?
Right.
You demand less proof than, I mean, for a UFO abduction than you do. Yeah, it shows where you are, where we are now. So let's try to do the screen share again. I don't know why, again, we're having some interesting issues, and I just got, okay, so let's do this again. And see if we can try this. And okay, so there you go. And then we've got the same type of kaleidoscope. Can you see that, Ryan?
I sure can. Wow. I feel sorry for everybody watching this.
I know you guys are troopers.
My goodness.
But, this is
all right. I have an idea here, trying to figure out your software for you.
Well, you know what? I mean, honestly, like I've said, this is my, yeah.
We're good. I have an idea. I have an idea. We'll have to do this every time, but that's all right. All right, share. Can you see the video up on screen? Is it paused?
Yep.
Okay, so that's how we did it. All right. So to give some background context on this, this is Rim Road, Highway 300. My vehicle is headed west, and this is the corner that everybody talks about in the book the very first time they see the craft. I do have this muted, and we're going to press play. I'm sure through here I'm going to stop quite a bit, but once I'm done, I will play the footage entirely. This is just shot with an iPhone. This is footage that I was preparing to show the guys back at work. So I'm talking here to the guys at work, which I do have muted. I'm backing up. And I'm zooming in. So I'm going to pause right there. And what does everybody see right here through the trees? But we see something hovering on top of the tree line. Erica, is this coming clear for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It looks like other UFO cases that I've investigated over the years. So.
Yeah, so this footage was shot during the day. I have desperately been trying to get back out to the Gentry at night when it's manned or lit up. Unfortunately, Arizona closed down all state and national parks. So, and they've just reopened them within the past 10 days. We're short on firefighters and it's fire season. Anyhow, I can't wait to get back here and get footage of this at night. But you see me zooming in. And for me, when I was showing the guys at work this, I actually had them pranked because I hadn't told them what had happened, that this was a UFO. Everybody who's been out there who sees this, because there's no way, absolutely no way, when this is hovering above or sitting on top of the tree line like this, you're seeing a craft, a square-shaped object that people are not used to seeing in the sky without something below it. And you cannot see what the stilts, the structure holding Gentry up. What I am going to make a small ask of people is imagine this at night. Imagine this lit up from the inside. It's glowing all over this forest. It's pretty remarkable. So let's go back and let's play that from the beginning. I'm backing up here. I just want to really get the most perfect shot that I can show the guys at work. Zooming in, 100% unmistakable. That is not a tower. That is a craft of some sort, because that's where your head's going to go first. That's sitting there floating in the trees. Like your head cannot comprehend what is going on here. So let's see. I'm talking here. And then we're going to zoom back out, and now I'm driving over there to get more footage. Erica, I do have to, it seems like each time I want to show a video or show the PDF, that we have to do a new screen share.
Okay. And I apologize. I don't, we'll figure this out. So let's see. I'm going to add you to the stream.
All right. Let's go back here.
Okay, so I invited you again to share, so.
Okay. Let me know when it pops up for you guys.
So it's still the same 5912?
Yep, perfect. Okay, so let's move on to this slide here. This is coming from a different direction. So where you see the footage that I just had shot there is right here where this arrow is. I've always found this footage to be this shot to be pretty compelling, because you see this small kind of canyon here in the middle. When you're here and you kind of move around and you're traversing the road, going around, it creates a bit of an optical illusion, especially at night, because you're seeing something already glowing. All the trees here in the front are blocking the view. And again, you're seeing something just hovering. There's been a lot of question of how could these guys fall for a forest tower? Let's keep in mind, we're talking about people that are pretty young. One of them 17. They live quite far away from this area. It's also really important to know this is the very first time that they had ever gone this way. Per what Steve Pierce had said, they had worked late. They're trying to get home faster, and I'm going to show some maps on that. I also wanted to show what Gentry looks like, say from perhaps this area where my mouse is. This is the entrance to the tower, and there's actually a small campground here. So Erica, we need to stop this screen share and then do another video screen share.
Should be coming up pretty quick. For some reason, there is a delay, which we will figure out.
Okay, one sec. Sorry?
Did you get it?
Yep, I just had to pull it up, and then I have to go through and manually select what on my screen I want to share each and every time we do this, but that's all right. Okay, so I do have the audio off on this as well. And moving forward with this footage, the reason I'm stopping about here is so that I can show from this angle that you can't see anything. Gentry is just right on the other side of this. You can see a sign here. I did verify, by the way, and be happy to show evidence of this. This sign is new and was not there at the time. This sign was put up within the past 3 years. So I'm showing the guys at work that. And then driving by, still, I mean, I am literally, Gentry is right here. And the point that I want to make here for folks is the trees here, which are tall enough and tall enough to have been there at the time, at least at a smaller height like this, you cannot see the tower. Even when you are going through, let me back up here. Even when you almost get up right up on it, I'm zooming in, I'm showing this sign here, and I'm saying you still can't. As soon as you turn in, now Gentry comes in view, and there's my dog, of course. So wanted to share that as well, so that we can give a really kind of fair look of what Gentry is. Let's go back to the presentation, Erica.
Okay, now I would like to ask you, Michael's
Sure.
asking, have any of the witnesses confirmed that this was the route home?
Yes, I have been here with Mike Rogers. Mike Rogers is already on record saying that he's been here to Gentry with me. And I don't want to quite get to that step yet,
okay,
but I was shown where Mike had stopped the car or stopped the truck and everything else.
Great.
Let's go back to screen sharing the PDF.
Did you get, okay, cool.
Yep. There's about like 10 steps you have to go through each time I'm doing this. All right, so now we're in the waiting room. Okay, so moving on from that slide where we left off. And we just watched 5913. Now here's more information about Gentry, and if folks are offended that I'm talking about Gentry from books or newspapers, I guess you'll let me know, or Facebook. But we have the U.S. Forest Service on their Facebook page. They're speaking about Gentry, built in 1965. The tower, 70 feet. It's 14 by 14. They don't have it here, but 14 by 14 by 8. And its model is the CL100 series cab. I'm bringing this up because there has been some questions about when was Gentry built. This CL100 series cab was placed there in 1965. The first tower, which looks substantially different from this, I want to say 1926. This is from the Payson Roundup, the same place where I had sourced the others, November 13th, 1975. The Gentry fire lookout, and this is going to be dealing with the Travis's story, but Gentry fire lookout reported that hundreds of vehicles had traveled up and down Rim Road in the area of the supposed disappearance. The reason I'm putting this up is there has been a bit of question if Gentry is manned during November. I have a second source on this. It's a book called The Ultimate Encounter. This story here is interesting, and I haven't shown you this, Erica, not for any reason, but I'd like to have a conversation with you about what we see kind of circled here. It says a few miles to the west of the site, meaning that what the public thinks is the abduction site, the forest. Do you guys see my whole RV shaking here, by the way?
That's incredible. Must be a great
Can you
storm.
see it like teeter tottering? Like it's pretty wild.
Wow.
Like it's really coming down here. Anyway, anyhow, so a few miles west of the site, the Forest Service maintained the Gentry Fire Watch Tower. It had been manned on the day Travis Walton disappeared. Surely a bright lit object had been flying around the woods. If a bright lit object had been flying around the woods, the fire watcher should have seen it. But when a check of the tower was made, the sheriff learned that the watcher had gone off duty at 5 p.m., an hour and 15 minutes before the UFO allegedly appeared to Mike Rogers' crew. So this is an interesting piece because it does confirm that somebody was there the night of the abduction, in air quotes, but it also says that the sheriff, so Sheriff Gillespie in this case, went over to ask the girl, if they'd seen anything. So that's why this one here is a bit of a mixed bag, but it's still important to our research. I call it a mixed bag because Sheriff Gillespie is on record maintaining that this entire story was a hoax from the get-go. I believe, and I've heard that he has since changed his changed his mind in a film that came out in about 2013-ish. However, at the time, there is no reason for Sheriff Gillespie to have been here. The other thing that's interesting to me is there's a lot of steps to get up here to the top. What I imagine if somebody was going to go talk to somebody here at all, I imagine they would be screaming off the top of it. What I was told is this is where Travis stayed during the 5-day period. I was told this, I was showed this. I was there with these guys. And so, yeah, this one is a bit of a mixed bag. How do you interpret this other article here? And I want to make a point here. I show things that are pro and con to this.
Right. I'm gonna add Barry to the stream so he could weigh in on that.
Okay.
How do you interpret that, Barry?
I have a hard time seeing it here, so I'll take a pass right now until I can get a bigger vision.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, Ryan, what are your thoughts? Because I'm trying to run defense and do all this stuff.
Yeah,
so
no problem.
Us,
so my thoughts on it are exactly kind of what I just said. That I like on one hand that it confirms in a different source than the Payson Roundup newspaper that the tower was manned. But I find it interesting the sheriff who didn't believe in UFOs was going to inquire with a government employee about UFOs. So it's a mixed bag on it. But again, still part of the story and still something that we have to consider.
And so let me just ask you really quickly. Red Pill Junkie again wants to ask another question, which are great questions. Thank you for asking. Do you have a map of the areas showing where the search party was looking for the 4 days? And I think this is important. Are you addressing this?
Well, let's pause here because I can see a lot of questions coming in here. So yeah, do you want to go through those, Erica? And
Yeah, so I mean, I think the one,
yeah,
the Red Pill Junkie, do you have a map showing the area covered by the search party who were looking for Travis for 4 days? And I think you've got some.
no,
But did Travis actually, was the search party deployed for 4 days? And let's talk a little bit about what Travis's family said with regard to the search party.
sure. So on the film, you see helicopters flying around, you see search dogs, you see, and I think it's referred to many times as the biggest search in Arizona history.
Right.
This sounds real good. There's no factual evidence outside of the Hollywood film that ever took place. The search party was very small. I've seen it go from anywhere to 4 to 6 people outside of volunteers, but 44 to 6 within the actual government. Or within law enforcement. I do not have a map of it. I don't know that a map exists. To be honest, I don't know that people make maps of where they search with police. I don't think so. What I do know for certain is that there was not a time that the law enforcement was there, that they were also not accompanied by Mike Rogers and Dwayne Walton, pinpointing where they thought that this where the craft had taken them. So they are at a completely different site. How this was explained to me is we need to keep everybody as far from Gentry as we can. So I hope that answers that question.
Okay, great. And so then, thank you. But hopefully later in your presentation, I know that apparently this is going to be a longer one than usual, but not 4 hours. But I mean, it was interesting. Didn't Travis's mom say that within 24 hours that they should call off the search?
Yeah, she sure did. That there's many sources that said that. The very first night, she said Travis is not of this earth. That she felt that the law enforcement were wasting their time.
And she's not the only one that asked law enforcement to suspend this search, which again to me is a highly unusual stance to take when you have a loved one who has disappeared and could potentially have been harmed. I mean, why would a family, Dwayne, Travis's mother, why would they go on record saying to suspend the search, or that Travis was, he was taken by perhaps UFOs, things like that? Can you pull that up? And I don't want.
Sure. So I just saw him.
Yeah.
Let's do this here. Let's do a screen share with something else that I have here. I've seen a comment, and I love the interaction that people have.
I know. I want to say
thank
you guys. There's some really great questions and a couple idiotic comments, but that's to be expected. But thank you. I mean, Red Pill Junkie, Michael, you guys are asking great questions.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so I'm ready for another screen share permission on your side.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a copy of Travis's book. So he, Red Pill Junkie. Travis's book states the search involved over 50 people, $10,000, blah, blah, blah. So this is a searchable PDF on iBooks, Apple iBooks, and I searched for 10,000 here, Red Pill Junkie. The only thing that comes up is one result in the book, and it's talking about a $10,000 reward, I guess you could call it, for Philip Klass. That's the only time that 10,000 comes up in the book. You're also saying a search of over 50 people. So let's do a search for the number 50 and see what comes up. So I'm guessing you guys can all see this here.
Mm-hmm.
How about instead of 50, let's just do search party. All right, so in chapter 5, Dwayne's pickup led my family and friends into the woods. One or two Forest Service checks joined the Mountain Bound Brigade. Okay, so that gives us an indication of at least the Forest Service taking 2 trucks. I believe you are saying you have 50 people. You're not saying anything about that, but nowhere in the book are we seeing the number 50 as well. Let's go to horses, and let's see if any horses are mentioned in the book. We have a lot of hits here on horses. Okay, so here's a hit that I think that is probably what you're talking about here, Red Pill Junkie. We have a half a dozen men on horseback, so 6. Respectfully, there is a big difference between 50 and 6. Let's go back to other things. You're talking about helicopters, so let's search for a helicopter. helicopter. And we have some hits here on helicopters. Oh, right there in the same place. So we have a half a dozen men on horseback, a couple of expertly piloted turbine helicopters, and spotters in fixed wing aircraft. Okay, so we are on this one for sure. But to your point there, we have 6 people that are called half a dozen men on horseback. We have 2 trucks of people. Depends if it's a 4-seat truck, 2-seat truck. I don't know, but I mean, let's go with 6 plus. Let's go with another 6 cops, so we're at 12. The reference over 50 people is further in the book. Okay, is it the number 50 or is it spelled out 50 so I can search properly? I'm just waiting on a reply. I guess I can try both. Why not? All right, so 16 hits on the word 50. Let's see. Oh, I just saw one right here in chapter 5. So the caravan of search parties began to arrive. The growing crowd of vehicles parked near the site in a large clearing in the trees. Truck after truck of searchers gathered. Over 50 men were present, almost all of them trained to handle emergencies. Sheriff Marlon Gillespie called the men together for a briefing. Okay, so there we go. We just verified the number 50. I typed in 50, and there's the entire word. I don't see any historical record on that. That's not part of any police report or anything else. So at this point, the only thing I can say is it's in the book, but I'm not able to find anything outside of the book that says that. I would think, and I'd hope you'd agree with me, that what's touted as the largest search party in Arizona history would have made news, even if it is a propaganda piece. You're muted, Erica.
Well, you know, I have such intelligent things to say when I'm muted. You'd be surprised. So, and so, I mean, this is interesting. And again, it's like, so here you have, you know, this story that is being put out there, and yet,
Yeah.
you know, there's no, where is the evidence in that book to back up this is what happened? And why is it that, you know, when you're putting forward all of these things that seem to have a little bit more to go on, a little bit more evidence, you know, it kind of makes me chuckle, I guess, to say that maybe people should be asking Travis for these details and to back them up. Just a thought.
I don't mind the questions. I don't mind.
I think it's good.
I
think it's great that you can get on there and interact, you know, with people. So I really appreciate that. So let's talk about the searchlights on the tower. And do you have any idea?
Sure.
Do you have any photos from the 70s? Could you tell us a little bit more about how the searchlights on the tower were potentially controlled, and so on? And I'll go back and read some more questions.
Sure. Oh, I just have it sitting here, remembering that we have to do a different screen share each time. One second. Here we go. Share screen window. Okay. The screen up there?
Yep.
Okay. So this is another CL100 series tower. This is a modern picture, to be fair. This searchlight is still there, but they were attached to the corners of the buildings. Lenses would go over the fronts of them that were either red, green, or blue, which are the standard colors. And we have, or I have, Charlie has as well, verified with the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest that not only were the spotlights in use, but the colored lenses on the front. These are powered by a generator that is located at the bottom of Gentry Tower or any other CL100 series tower. Let's go to another question. Perhaps maybe that's better. You know, folks are here to ask questions, maybe not listen. So I'm prepared with a substantially large PDF here that I wanted to go through, but let's be interactive with people and answer questions if that's okay. I can bounce around pretty easily.
And I just want to say again, I think it's really, really cool that there are people in chat that are asking such great questions. And, you know, you can see that some people haven't actually listened to the presentation that you put forward last week, and some people don't.
That's
truly
okay.
know. We don't. It is okay, and some people don't understand the background, you know, all of the things that have taken place. But people are here, and I want to say Drew Williamson. I want to read this. In 2019, I asked Travis how he survived with no water for 5 days. Most people are dead after 3 days, and how was he able not to urinate for 5 days? Believers invoke the alien technology as the solution. What do you? What can you say?
It's a great question, Drew. It's not only just that, but the body produces something called ketones, which when your body thinks that it's starving or you haven't fed yourself, it's a hormone that is produced that tells your body to you start using its fat deposits. Those were tested on Travis, and none of them showed up. This has been a substantial issue for quite a bit of people. Obviously, having bowel movements, urination, ketones, all of these things. To be fair, that's not something that I would focus on, because one could argue the point that Travis was fed on the UFO. Somebody could argue that point. So
well, then they probably would.
okay.
Knowing this crap. I mean,
yeah.
well, you know.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure aliens have to eat too. So they share their food, but yeah. Okay. That would be my response. Drew, when you asked him that question, what was his reply?
And I know that Drew will answer that. And so thank you, Drew, again for asking these questions. And I wanted to say, while we're waiting for Drew to answer, you know, Red Pill Junkie just said it would be interesting to investigate how powerful the searchlights are and were. And so I think it would be interesting to investigate that. And
to Scott's point here, I see that. I'm sorry, the cutout there. I know you're still talking, but to Scott's point there, I don't believe for a second a truck full of men all mistook a damn tower for an outer spacecraft. I hear you, because I was the same place. You have to remember, man, I started this story as a firm believer, and when I saw Gentry the very first time, I literally thought I had saw a UFO myself. So I hear your point, I see it, but it's one thing for a supposition like what you're talking about. I respectfully don't know these guys, and I really don't either. So we can't really come to that conclusion. However, when somebody that's heavily involved in the story, I'm going to leave names out of this one intentionally, walk me through and they show me how and where and why and how it all happened and what things looked like and what the air smelled like and how hard the ground was inside of Gentry. For me, that's all I hear. When I have contracts with people where we are talking about this, when I have text messages, when Mike Rogers docs Travis, which was not cool, but in there is verifying that you're going to see Travis Walton talk to me about this. I hear your comment, but the person who is involved, where I learned about this from, Mike Rogers verified this with, respectfully makes your comment from my end a moot. But I do realize as well that I am here to put something forward. So I would ask you respectfully to continue on with those questions, because I don't mind to be challenged at all. I think Eric or anybody on this screen will attest. I have no problem with being challenged, and I'm happy to show as much as I can. And if I don't have it, I will get back to you on it.
Right, and thank you, Ryan. I just want to say again, thank you for for being challenged. Thank you for what you've endured the past week, just simply for coming on a show and asking important questions and putting
Yeah,
forward a
no
very
problem.
good presentation, because what you have been through, what Scott has been through, what everything that's transpired in the past week since this has been absolutely ridiculous, and
Yeah.
that's unfortunate that we can't, as adults who are trying to figure out information as it is being presented to us, that we have to deal with this kind of nonsense, and that really is too bad. But again, I want to just say thank you for all of the wonderful people in chat who are asking really important questions. I think that it's great. That's how we're
Yeah.
going to learn. And thanks, Ryan, for answering.
Agreed.
So,
So we
this
have
is
a question
great.
here from Rogue Alien. So the beam of light that came down and hit Travis, did all the guys see that happen? Did that not happen? Well, on Erica's show last week, when Mike was on there prior to me, it's the testimony of Mike Rogers that nobody saw the beam, that Mike Rogers instead had a feeling that something was going to happen and hauled ass. So that would be my answer to your question. And I suppose for verification of that, it'd be on Erica's last episode. But there's other sources as well where these guys are testifying that they didn't see it. You have to remember, whether in front of Gentry or at where they shifted the story to, they're in a full-size truck. Those trucks back then are as big as what we have today, so the roof's pretty shallow, and they're loaded 4 in the back and 3 in the front. So when you're squished in, you can't see out the window anyway. And this is Steve Pierce's testimony as well, that these guys saw nothing. So no, the story has grown to that, but that's not what was there.
Okay, thank you. And I want to ask you, for me, something that is interesting is who gained financially from the get-go of the story, and over
Sure.
the years, who didn't gain financially, because there's been a lot of squabbling back and forth from people, as we've seen on the last show and different things over the years.
So we're gonna do another screen share about who. Look, at the end of the day, regardless of UFO and everything else, follow the money, right? Let's follow the money. So let's see who profited. Here's a picture of the crew holding up checks.
Right. And just to state, the $1 million check, that wasn't what they actually were awarded.
No,
that
it says right here.
Right.
It says right here.
Okay.
Travis Walton had $2,500, and the rest of the guys split $2,500. They were going out for the $100,000 reward. I have part of my packet here of information why they did not get the full 100,000, but they walked away with 5. They were going after the 100. They only got 5, and I do have the reasoning why. It was the recommendation of Ground Saucer Watch, a pro UFO organization, did not believe Travis. All right, let's see if we can find some more questions. I'm just going to scroll up here.
Right, and so let me ask you, after all of this, I mean, who was specifically profiting from this as the story went on over the years? And
well, if you listen to the dispute in between Mike Rogers, he would tell you Travis Walton, their disputes are consistently about money, and Mike Rogers has no problem making public statements that, in his view, without the testimony of the witnesses, Travis wouldn't have had any money anyway. Yeah, I mean, this is the Travis Walton experience. It is Travis Walton making money. It's the Travis Walton story. That's the answer to that question for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, have any more, or should I continue, or what would you like to do?
I am just looking at some other questions really quick, and I think it is interesting that people are trying to, they want to recreate this. I think that would be really, really cool. I think we all do, and I will just say that you're one of the very few people who has actually been there. You were actually with people that were recounting the story, and you have background into this personal testimony from a couple of these people that is pretty incredible. So
this is a question. I think Michael Huntington here. Did the alleged collaborator in the tower get part of Travis's cut of the award? Why have they kept quiet all this time? I had that same question myself, and it took some digging to get to that. I will admit that one of the biggest errors that I made in this was a complete oversight that Gentry, the campground, is federal Forest Service property, and that federal property was used. I'm gonna be careful how I say this. Federal property is alleged to have been used in the commission of a crime, which would be fraud in multiple ways. The first count of fraud would be filing a false police report. The second case of fraud is getting out of a Forest Service contract, citing an act of God, which was aliens and UFOs. Mike's on record for that. To answer your question here, I desperately would love to know who was in that tower with Travis, because I think that would be really telling. But we also have to be honest and think, would this person want to talk about how they were a part of a fraud for financial gain using government property? I have no idea. I can't answer that question if this person is still alive. The only thing I know from that story is I was told that it was a friend of Dwayne that was working in that tower.
okay.
But I would love to know. If anybody is familiar with filing a Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, usually for about $200, you can file one and you ask the question. I've thought about it. Do I want to spend the $200 to get the person's name? My hesitation with it is I don't know that they would keep work schedules on file, and I'm not sure that I want to pay the $200 to do it, because I've already been walked through the story. So for me, the $200 may not be worth it. But I mean, maybe for one of y'all it is.
Okay. All right.
And if anybody finds that information, I would hope that you'd post it publicly. That'd be really awesome. I would appreciate it. I think everybody else would too.
Well, and I definitely think because of this show, there will be some people that are going to go out there and do some legwork on this.
Yeah, I love it.
That's important. I think we do
Yeah.
need to be doing that instead of,
So let's help them
yeah.
with that, Erica. Let's help them with that legwork. Let's talk about exact locations. Let's talk about coordinates and look at this all on a map.
Okay.
So let's do a share screen here. Let me get Google Maps open. One sec. Statute of limitations. There is no statute of limitations, Lilo, on any crime against the government. Just FYI. Which kind of sucks. There's statute of limitations for us, but I think whenever you try to do a crime against the government, they don't. We also have to be realistic. Would the government even be interested in pursuing something like this? I think in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. All right, so I believe Scott has already made the coordinates for everything public already in the description of the video. Is that right, Scott?
No, I have not.
Would you mind, so people can follow along here? Or can you just copy and paste what I did in the chat? Will they be able to click on links of what I'm talking about?
It's possible. I'll give it a shot.
Okay. If not, I'm going to pause here. And if anybody wants to go on Google, let's do it. So let's talk about the site of the alleged abduction per as pitched, as promoted. Let's start there. So here are the exact coordinates. I'm going to pause here on my screen, and is my screen visible enough that people can see this here? Is anybody in chat that could verify if they see this?
I can see it good, so.
Okay. Let's take a 2-minute break, and let's give people a second to pull this up. This is where this abduction allegedly took place. So for folks that are interested, let's pull it up. And while that's happening, I'm gonna get a glass of water. I'll put myself on mute really quick.
Right, cool. Grab a glass of water. I know this is, and again, clearly, I think I'm just going to be having like what a 5-hour show maybe tonight. Is it? That's the great thing about all of us. We can just keep talking and going and investing into pens. Clearly, this needs to happen. It's definitely a long thing, but I just want to hear more. And so I apologize to all of you who are out there. I know last week the 4-hour show was a bit much, but you guys did make it through, and so congratulations. There's a lot of meat in there, and remember, you can stop the show and rewatch it at a later date. So, but this is really interesting, and so I'm going to bring Barry in here really quickly. Barry, what are your thoughts so far on all of this and the presentation that you've seen?
Well, he's making it pretty clear as to where he's coming from on this possible scenario of what happened to Travis Walton. I think people need to remember, though, that when you're presented with a number of hypotheses about what may have happened to him, the last ones that should be considered are the ones that invoke an exotic explanation, like space travelers, other dimensions, time traveling, and so on, because those provide the least amount of proof or the least provable of the information involved. Now, the reason why it still might be considered up in the air by a lot of people is because there's still missing information as to aspects of the incident itself, who might have been in the tower. You didn't have witnesses following these people around the entire time.
Right, but we're a lot more closer today than we ever have been in unraveling this or putting this forward. And so I would say, given the gravity, in my opinion, of the information presented by Ryan, I would say now it might be time for the people that are on the not opposing side, but the people that are promoting the story, perhaps they should be answering some of the questions that we are throwing out there.
Right, that's exactly true. It's not up to the critic to prove it didn't happen. It's up to the person saying it's an exotic event to prove that it did happen, and it should always stay that way.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Barry, for weighing in. And now Ryan is back, and so Ryan, please continue. And are you
all right? So for
now?
folks that that want to follow along, obviously the red pinpoint or pin drop is where this happened, allegedly. This of course is not Gentry. This is what the public knows as the abduction site. The other heart here, for those that are interested, Scott will put this up, these coordinates up. They'll be in the video description. They're also here on the video, so folks can pause if necessary. But this is the Turkey Springs job site. Now, of course, that's going to be a huge area here for the job site. Now, this for some people may be hard, and with screen sharing, probably even harder, but you're going to see an old logging road that goes through here. For folks that are used to looking at satellite images like this road will pop right out. For folks that are not used to looking at satellite, this might be a little bit more tricky. But after we're done here, if people would like to go and find the road, it's going to be right next to the coordinates that I'm sharing here. Anyhow, how the story goes, according to the book, is they're here at work, And let's see if we can get a 3D view. Yeah, kind of. So the incline here. They're at work. You know, guys are I don't know, up here, over here, wherever. They're out at work. It's time to stop. They get in the truck. Here's the road, and they are going to be traveling at this point south to Rim Road here. And the typical way home is going to be along Rim Road and in here. But let's not go quite that far yet, because as the story goes, they're driving here along this homemade logging road. And as they're driving along, let's use Google here to get a distance. Now, I want to be fair to this version of the story, that when I do a measure of distance here, that this is Turkey Springs area. That does not mean that when they left for work, they were not up over here, where the mouse is, up over here. So let's be fair to this version of the story, but let's do a measured distance from here to where I am told where the truck stopped with the public version of the story. So we're at 1,983 feet, roughly. Let's just call it 2,000 to be fair. That's roughly 364 meters away. Let me show you what this looks like with a drone footage, which I don't know if I dare, because I'm gonna have to start over again with a screen share. Let's hold off on that, and remind me, Erica, to come back to that. So as the story goes, the public story, they're here at the job site. They're headed home, and right up at the top of this hill here, they see the UFO. Travis gets out of the car and runs up the side of a pretty steep hill, through the trees. They're, you know, whatever, to see a UFO that's originally described as pretty much the same dimensions as Gentry. When I stood here, with members of the crew, using that term loosely again, you can't even see the trees up here at all, because this is a fairly steep incline. You'll see that in the drone footage or drone shot as soon as I can show y'all. But that's okay. I mean, this is what the public is told. So let's continue on with that story. You can see here a line of trees that kind of makes a chevron a little bit. This is how the road would go out. They're going to continue around this. You can see the road pick up again right here, and they are going to follow the road all the way out to Rim Road and head out. So what we are asked to believe with this is, each person has to make their own decision. You're out here cutting wood. Nobody's going to argue that or take issue with that. You're going to see something on top of a hill where you can't even see the trees at all. Now that I've given the coordinates, I hope somebody can go out there and see this for themselves. But they see this UFO, and they get scared, and they haul out of there at great speeds. I believe it's quoted at 35 miles an hour. So again, we're going to go with the public version of this. Erica, I am going to stop this screen share, and I am going to bring up that drone shot, and I want to show what this looks like from the ground, so that we can hopefully invite people to see which version of the story makes the most sense to them. So let me get that up on my end. 1 second.
And again, thanks guys for your great questions. Red Pill Junkie, you're asking some really good questions. Thank you.
Do we need to stop here and do some more?
You know what? We can actually,
up to you.
Not right at the moment, but I just want to say
No,
again,
we're good.
Andrew Williamson. Actually, yes, we do. Well, I want to talk about a question that Drew asked. Where is the tower, and what are the coordinates for that?
So can we first focus on the public story, and then we'll go to Gentry, so as not to confuse the two?
Okay.
Because there seems that there is some confusion between the two, and they're two
Perfect.
totally different locations.
Perfect.
Okay, so let's do a screen share here.
Okay, and I keep trying to do it, so it's got to be. There you go.
Okay, so this is an aerial shot. Rim Road is behind me. Is obviously from my drone. This photo was taken 6 months ago or so. Again, down here is the Turkey Springs job site. You can see the decently steep embankment here going up the hill. You can see where I've placed the work truck, and you can see where this UFO allegedly was. Let's get a closer shot, which is here. And of course, this one has diagrams on it that makes it a little bit easier. I'm hoping for folks here that they can see that this is a really steep incline. So, and you'll be able to see the road here a lot better as well. So what we're asked to believe is, if everybody can follow my mouse, that the truck is driving along this old logging road, certainly not maintained by the forest, as we can tell. But that's all right. It's cool that it's still there. And they see a UFO up here. So I have shown this slide before last week. What I'm going to ask people is to consider the height of the trees here, and if somebody can gauge this incline going up. Now, of course, this is a two-dimensional shot, so the truck is facing the wrong direction, of course, but it should be facing up this way. So what we're asking ourselves here is, Travis is running straight uphill, not straight, but pretty damn close, straight uphill here. Each of these ponderosa pines and everything here, their height is anywhere between 40 and 60 feet. Typically, that's what they height according to Wikipedia, I believe. Now, also, to be fair to the story, this area was ravaged by a fire, so this is going to be all new growth. So I'm going to make we're going to be generous and say that these trees along here are between 15 and 20 feet high, which is substantially less than a Wikipedia guesstimate. Also taking into account this is new growth. So we're going to go up the side of the hill. Run up the side of the hill. We're expected that everybody in the truck can see through the trees, and they can see uphill to a point where we have a ton of trees blocking. We have an incline of somebody standing there that gets flown back. This is what we're. If people are cool with that, then let's keep going. I'd like to stop this screen share here, and I'd like to show what this footage looks like from the ground. So let's do a stop. Let me get that footage up here. You're muted, Erica.
Don't you get tired of telling me that? I
That's
think that's
right.
I think that's what Mario and Scott get tired of telling me that too. But we're getting there. We're just on a new platform. So anyway,
When you see that, do you have any commentary where I get this footage ready to go here?
I just think it's incredible, and I wanted to say that you've done such an exemplary job of putting this together. This is, perhaps the people in the story that put the story forward could put together a more thorough presentation. That would be probably good after all of this.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay, let's stop, or let's pull this up. In a second. All right, so I'm gonna start a new screen share here.
Yep.
Share screen window. Oops. 1 second, it's wanting me to open it in a different program. All right, here we go. Share. All right. So this is B-roll footage that I shot. That's me in my truck. this road here, I can't show y'all on a map. This kind of sucks. We only show one thing at a time because I'd like to have a map on one hand, on one side of the screen, and this on the other, but we're not able to do it. Anyhow, so the direction my truck is facing is going to be leading to the site. This is the old logging road from the ground. You can see it kind of bobs and weaves through the trees here. Again, when the guys are making this road, they just find the easiest path to get through, not have to cut everything down. So allegations, and so I'm going to call them, driving 35 miles an hour through here in a full-size truck, not going to happen. But let's play this footage. This is my truck. I want to point out that my truck can barely kind of make it through. It's pretty wide, and I would say that my truck's probably about the same size as theirs. So again, we're asked to believe that drove 35 miles an hour through here. I don't think you'd have any suspension left at that point. Let's go back to Google Maps now, so I can show that again. Screen share window. All right, ready when you are. On screen. Okay, so that spot that just filmed in my truck is going to be somewhere. Let's clear that out. Somewhere about here-ish. That's what I was driving there. Perhaps here with this bend. That's about where that was. So let's zoom out and let's kind of go through this again and then see if there's any questions. As far as I'm aware, I think I'm really the first person to walk people through the site, where it is, what it looks like, to show aerial footage, Google Maps, terrestrial footage. So I'm hoping that for people that have never seen this before, they might have some questions. I can speak either way on this. Of course, you have to remember I started this project pitching this story as told to the public.
Right.
So do we have any question here?
There are some questions from
Yeah.
Rohan. So if it is it possible that the fire tower might have been on staff so late in the year?
We're on the fire tower. I'm trying to talk about the public story.
Well, right, all right. We just keep going back to the fire tower. So
people are not interested in. I'm trying to be respectful to the story as told and trying to not tell people what to believe, because I just feel like that's kind of messed up. But yeah, I mean, if people are not interested in the story as told, let's jump straight to Gentry.
No. And I just think I'm just reading some of these questions, and so I just have to say though that they are asking good questions.
Yeah, let's hear them.
I really appreciate that. And so let's just ask. And I appreciate Rand. Like, first of all, I just want to say that this has been a long week for you, and I appreciate your perseverance for doing this after being doxxed and all of the things that have happened to you. I think you've shown remarkable resiliency, and you've been I commend you for that. So this has been a hard thing. So absolutely. Okay, so let's do this. People are trying to find the coordinates so they can see this with their own computer, which I would love for people to do. I've kind of seen this here. Would it be okay if does Scott have access to edit the description of the video where we can put the links in there? You know what? I don't think we have that capability at the moment of time right now.
Okay.
But we will.
All
We'll edit those in after.
Okay.
But we should be able to go into the chat and then put the link in there, which I think.
All right. So I'm seeing questions about radiation and stuff.
Yes, and
site. So since
yes.
Yep. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Cool.
All right. Whoops. So we're gonna need to do a new screen share.
Groovy.
Window share. All right. Okay, so the PDF is back on screen for everybody, right? We're good?
You're
Okay.
good. Yep, it's there.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about tree rings for a sec. All right. So this is a screen grab right from their most recent film that shows these very oblong looking trees with this huge tree growth. Pointed. This is supposed to represent the UFO here in the middle. Let's start with GSW, Ground Saucer Watch, that came out there, and as it reads, on-site investigation of where the UFO was reportedly seen was conducted by experienced Ground Saucer Watch field investigators, and high residual magnetism measurements were recorded. No indication of any radiation phenomenon were observed or measured, nor were any ground markings, including heat affected areas. This is the report by a pro UFO place, but let's go to the book. And I'm hoping you're following me on this one, Red Pill. From the book, Mike wondered if there might be another explanation. In this instance, we're talking about the tree rings and radiation. He considered consulting a forestry expert to confirm his observation and calculations. Where could anyone be found who was sufficiently objective and willing to take the consequences of passing official judgment on such a question? Obviously, pursuing it would be futile. However, the stump and the other trees are still there. So, the time of the latest rendition of Travis's book, this has never been seen, as far as I'm aware, by a non-UFO, third party, non-party to the abduction site. Here's the thing. I get what they're saying. I get when they're asking if they could find anyone who was sufficiently objective. Fine. You don't want somebody debunking you as soon as you mention UFO. I get it. So U of A, Flagstaff, they have a tree ring department. Flagstaff, that area is very thick forest and stuff too. So easily they could take the samples to Flagstaff. If they're afraid of their celebrity, they could have had somebody else go drop them off. I think it would have been incredibly compelling for these tree rings to be just dropped off and then somebody come back and talk about radiation. That would have been super compelling, but that is not what happened. Let's do a different, actually, let's go here. This is a tree that is alleged to have a tree ring growth on it, making the tree. What we want to believe is it's going to be as close to this graphic as possible. I mean, it looks like a football or something almost. This is the actual picture of one of the trees in question. I don't think anybody in here is an expert on trees and tree growth or anything else, but I think we're all smart enough to know that this tree here looks nothing like this tree here. This is a shot of where this UFO allegedly would pick Travis up. This is the spot right here. Let's make this a little bit bigger. If folks can see this dead, burned up branch here, this log, I drug that there. I put that there as a representation of where I was shown that the UFO was. It's hovering in between these three trees here. The tree that this in question, this tree here that we see here on the left of this slide, is also on the left of this slide, just right behind this new growth. You can see it where my mouse is. I'm going to show you this a bit better because it's going to be hard to see right now. But can you see how this cutout is facing, like to me taking the picture? Can you see this area here where it's growth? Can you see this stump right here in picture left? And can you see that same stump right here? This is actually the exact opposite of what is alleged. The exact opposite. The tree rings, the cutouts are facing away from where the UFO allegedly was away. So we're going to do video 6901. Erica, let's transition over to that. And any you're on mute, of course.
Yeah, no, and this is interesting, and I just want to go back up and just kind of address a couple things. Were the crew, aside from Rogers, asked, and this is kind of going off on a different subject, but I want to ask this while it's fresh in my mind. Were the crew, aside from Rogers, asked to point out where the incident took place, or was that only determined by Walton?
No. So how that story goes, and we can pull up the book here and check for sure. But what my memory says with the public abduction spot is the when they went back with the sheriff, they were joined by Rogers, because Walton is gone, right? He's allegedly gone. So you have Rogers, you have Ken Peterson, and John Gillay. I think don't quote me on this. It was half the crew. The others left, and I took Mike's work truck back to town, and Mike stayed with the law enforcement. They went around looking, and obviously didn't find anything. So they went directly to Travis's mom's cabin to see if Travis was there. Travis's mom lives. Travis's mom, if you were to go right down 300 Rim Road, she's also kind of off of Rim Road, but the opposite direction of Gentry, 10 miles. So Gentry, the abduction site, Turkey Springs worksite, and the cabin, if you were to get a radius of all that together from one end to the other, I'm going to guess 15 to 20 miles like this, where all of this takes place completely. So Travis's mother lives there, the worksite, Gentry. Now, what's interesting is that the night that the sheriff went there with, or law enforcement went there, and Mike was there, and he told me that story on May 1st when he and I went to the cabin together, and I always found this so bizarre. And I get it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anybody, women of this time period, but how it was explained to me is Travis's mother, Mary Collette, would not let the police in her house to talk to her about her son that was missing, murdered, whatever you want to call it. Instead, she asked the men to leave, the police to leave, because what I was told is she was a single woman, which is true, and having a bunch of men in her house that at night in the middle of nowhere was not socially acceptable.
And she also asked that the investigation, the search party, be called off as well.
Yeah, that's correct. She said that. Okay. Yeah, she said that Travis was fine and that the UFOs would bring him back. It's fine, no big deal. You can go home.
Okay, as did Dwayne, which is is a very unusual response.
Yeah,
I don't think. Yeah. Anyway.
All right, so let's go to video 6901. So let's pull this up.
And again, thank you all for the marathon. Again, I said 2 hours. Who am I kidding?
Well, here's the thing. We're talking about a story that's 45 years in the making that has a lot of stuff going on. I mean, we haven't even got to Gentry yet. Maybe we'll have to do part 2 another time, because this could be 4 hours again.
Well.
All right. All right. So let's go to window. All right. Sure. So ready when you are. Okay, so this is video footage of that same tree that I showed you guys. Here's that stump. I'm going to try to slide this forward because, again, I'm not a tree ring expert. I'm not a tree growth expert. I'm not going to claim to be. The only thing I can claim is to be visually observant, and this tree is not bulging out like we're thought, or excuse me, like we were told. Also, to be repetitive, this is fake. You can tell here just by light for folks that are good at lighting. You can see that this side of the tree is lit, which is Are you going to be okay, everybody? Wait, in the comment section, where does the sun set? What direction? West. So that means this is facing west, which is opposite to where the UFO landed. Anyhow, let's continue this footage. Oop. Again, this is footage that I'm just showing to the people at work, but I want to get a good shot here because I showed everybody that the UFO allegedly landed in between these 3 trees, and we can see them right here. I know that this is not the best shot, and I apologize for this. I did not shoot this footage with the intent of showing this. However, you see this big tree here, what's left of it at least. You see this one here, and you see this one here in front. Now, if you can remember on the other slide how I was showing you where I put the burn up log there in the middle, this is facing the opposite way. And there is no bulging of this at all. Here is another tree there. I would love for somebody to go in the chat and tell me they think that thing's growing weird. I mean, that's just a normal tree stump. So, and there's my drone sitting there on another tree. But yeah, let's have a conversation about this radiation here, because there's a couple big points with the story as told to the public. The things that people are going to mention is they're going to mention the polygraphs, and they're going to say, how did all these people pass the polygraph? We discussed that last week. The questions asked in a polygraph are about a missing person report,
Right. And that
Travis
is so
being
important.
missing.
Yes, and thank you.
And,
And I just want to say that throughout the week, I've seen people, I mean, that's their little go-to. Well, 5 people took a polygraph. And
yeah.
Yet, what does that mean?
Yeah, it just means that they weren't responsible for Travis being missing, which we know to be true.
And
so, I mean, of course they're going to pass a polygraph.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So if we can throw that out the window, polygraph doesn't mean anything. It's also really interesting and I'm going to show it, where Travis failed his first polygraph and then instantly polygraphs are no good anymore, which is just super fascinating. If Travis failed one, the polygraph is a pseudoscience. But if the guys passed one because they think that means a UFO was real, polygraphs are they're amazing. They prove everything in the world. So, I mean, let's keep that in mind. The other thing that we hear about this radiation, and we hear, hey, it's been 45 years and nobody has changed their story. So, and I touched on that last week of nobody changing their story or denouncing the story. Let's take Mike Rogers and his confession out, because he has changed his mind on that. I don't believe him, but he changed his mind. So let's leave it at that. And let's talk about Ken Peterson. I talked about this last week. He says that Travis's account is 100% wrong. He thinks it's a religious experience. Travis is up in the night, whatever. Steve Pierce has been on the record a ton saying that Travis is a liar. He doesn't know Travis is anything but a liar. He can't stand to be around Travis, doesn't like him, doesn't want anything to do with him. Instead, Steve Pierce has a theory of Area 51 and Black Ops. Alan Dallas, he's also of the opinion that this is Black Ops, Area 51, stuff like that. So if those are the 3 pillars of this story, and we've already said, okay, well, 2 of them we know is no. Let's go to the last one here, and that's this radiation or allegations of radiation. Let's pull up a screen share again so I can get this on screen, and let's have a conversation with people here. I would also be really curious to hear Scott. I mean, Scott, let's hear from you. We haven't really heard you. You're really well known in this community. I don't know that you've seen this footage. I don't know if I've shared it with you, not for any particular reason, but I mean, let's get this shot here. Am I back? Yeah, let's get this shot here. I mean, what's your opinion on this, Scott, compared to what I just showed you?
Well, I know that from the research that I did that there was nobody with any scientific background that did any tests on that. There's one place called you were talking about it, analysis something limited, and I guess she ran some tests on it, but there's no peer review. We can't call it science unless it's peer review. It has to go through a set of tests by other separate scientists and be peer reviewed for it to be considered science. So
here's the other thing. Can we talk about? And I don't want to sound like like you guys try to talk about this Philip Class. That guy's a freak weirdo. But can we have a conversation of why are UFOs and radiation tied together? Because as far as I'm aware, we don't. Leaving the conspiracy theories and that stuff on the side, how do we know that UFOs have radiation to begin with? Like, why are we attaching these two?
What I would like to do is bring Barry Greenwood in, because Barry actually does know the history. He is the world's foremost historian and archivist with regard to this subject. So if anybody can answer how radiation,
yeah, maybe Barry.
is...
I don't think Barry's seen this footage either that I just showed. So yeah, let's talk about it.
No, I haven't, but I know that radiation issues have dated back to the 1950s. There's mention in Edward Ruppelt's early book about Project Blue Book, the report on unidentified flying objects. And I know one particular instance where the Air Force had tested for radiation and what eventually turned out to be a hoax, the Sonny Desverges story. And that involved marks that were seen on the ground during or after an incident where the grass seemed to be singed from inside the ground rather than on the surface, which you would normally expect a UFO to do if it were really from space and it were emitting radiation. But in this case, it was below the ground, and that was explored at first for radiation, but it turned out that there was a possibility this was some sort of an electrical effect.
Got it. Can I ask you this question, given your experience in this field? Has anybody gone out and with actually qualified people to test an area for radiation and the result to come back negative, and then for radiation to appear at alleged UFO site, say 15, 20 years later? Have you ever, is it possible that traces of radiation can be dormant or I don't know, come out of nowhere?
I'm not aware of that. Usually if radiation is sought at a landing site, an alleged site, it would be expected to be found right away, not years later.
Correct. I would agree with that as well. In your experience, have you ever known Ground Saucer Watch to be a company that our favorite word, propaganda people? Do they have a good history of you being fair and balanced in the UFO community, given all of your time here, Barry?
I think they tried to be scientific about this subject. Incredible. That was an era in the late 70s, early 80s, where I think there was an effort by the whole subject to be scientific, but I guess it just didn't last long. But Ground Saucer Watch did mainly photo analysis, and some of their analysis could be disputed, but in general, they were tended to be critical.
So on this, I'm going to read this to you for quote. I don't want to keep going over this radiation thing, but I'm seeing a lot of comments about it, and Barry, you're very respected in this community. So I'm going to read this quote again. It says, an on-site investigation of where the UFO was reportedly seen was conducted by experienced GSW, Ground Saucer Watch, field investigators, and high residual magnetism measurements were recorded. No indication of any radiation phenomena were observed or measured. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you don't want to pass, whatever, but on a scale of 1 to 10, when you read that report, what degree of certainty do you find accuracy and GSW putting this as part of their report back to their employer, which in this case is the National Enquirer?
I would say it's probably pretty accurate. I'd have to review the file again to see exactly what they had done, but taking measurements was something they tried to do correctly. And if they had high magnetism readings and all, it was based on instrumentation.
I would agree. So if there's no radiation that was reported, then why are we having conversations about radiation in tree rings? Are you able to walk me through that one?
Good question. You need a positive result to analyze. If it's not detected, what's to analyze?
Correct. I one last question here. I'm going to move on. I think you'd agree that these are very abnormally shaped tree stumps here in this graphic. I may ask your opinion on. Of course, it's going to be video footage. Dang it! I can't show you. The tree stump is right here. But even with this tree, and you've already seen the footage. You know the stump I'm talking about.
Right.
Do you find that to be similar to what the graphic is that many folks have clung on to radiation here?
Well, you mean in terms of the stump bulging?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't see any sign of it there.
Yeah.
It looks like a normal tree stump.
Yeah. Okay. So at this point, I want to go back to the comment section here, Erica, and if you could help me out, I want to move on from the public story, and move on to Gentry, because I think that's why most people are here. I want to get back there. I want to talk about it a lot more, and I want to answer questions.
Absolutely.
But I did want to spend some time with the public theory, because people do deserve to compare and contrast the two. If you wouldn't mind, Erica, let's query people here if they're. I mean, what's the opinion on radiation when the report says no?
And I will ask that, but one thing I want to do, because Skills Jr. just came in and just said he's behind, clearly, or she, but did Ryan seriously recommend that people pursue getting them charged with a federal crime? And that's not what you said. So.
No, I never asked anybody to charge.
So, yeah, Skills Jr., go back and listen to the show.
What I said is given what I have been advised, that committing a crime on federal property, to perpetrate fraud with the intent of financial gain is probably not the best idea. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer. I have just been advised that can be a very daunting slope, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not a lawyer. Perhaps somebody that may be interested in the legal theory behind committing crimes on federal property could speak to it. I have no idea. Okay,
and I want to just address this Skills Jr. person, because he's or she is saying they're senior citizens who pulled a LARP decades ago. Let's get a grip. How about you get a grip and maybe address the fact that people have been conned, allegedly they could have been, and people have been with new information presented. There is the potential that people could have, I mean, this is not a factual case. So you're going to affect where are you coming from?
Well, let's go back to let's go back to how that question came up, or why I made the comment I did. So we were talking about trying to get a hold of the guy or girl that was working in the tower at the time. And it was my opinion, I want to be clear, my opinion, that I don't think that this person would come forward because of the potential legal ramifications in doing so. That's how this started. So right, at the end of the day, I don't know that the government is going to go pursue somebody for flashing a light from a Forest Service tower. I think there's a lot of things that our government needs to focus on, but not that. But also what comes along with that is all of the people out there trying to go find aliens, and the cost not only of this investigation over the years, but keeping people out of the area, and all the people that want to tour there. Who knows? That's not a decision for us to make. The only thing that everybody can agree, I hope, is that perpetrating a hoax, perpetrating a scheme with financial gain is not okay. I don't care how old you are. I don't care where you're from. It's probably not cool. Whether it's persecuted or not, who the heck knows? And who the heck cares? We're not here to persecute Travis Walton.
Well, and this is what and again, I think we need to reiterate this fact for people that are having a hard time understanding this. The burden of proof shouldn't be on us. The burden of proof should be on the people that are presenting a story that has holes, as we are seeing. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, like I've mentioned over the past week, you've been doxxed, we've had threatening messages, all of these things that are taking place, and people writing blogs that didn't have the courtesy to actually reach out to me and ask me questions like an adult behind the scenes.
Well, how about this?
So,
who was the crime? Who? If we want to talk about a crime, and let's keep in mind the word we're using, crime, because it sounds pretty nasty. But let's do this. Who is the victim of this? Is it the government about Gentry, or is it all the people that have based the past 45 years on this case that have used this as the golden cow floating in the air to all of the people that have? I've seen messages from people that it's like their kid was stolen or taken away. It's like I'm trying to expose Santa Claus is not real. Where is the pain coming from? I don't think the government cares.
Right.
But you're asking somebody to come out to the public and publicly admit that they committed a crime. I don't know. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. But let's not get worked up about distractors.
And I thank you for addressing that, because I think this, honestly, because this has been such an emotional issue for people that are vested in believing something. And obviously we've seen that there are people, like a small group, luckily, of people that are vested in bullying and trying to stop people from presenting evidence that could shine a light on a case that isn't factual. And at the end of the day, for me, for you, for Barry, for Jan, for the people that have spent decades in the subject and deserve more respect than that, I think that this is a very important issue. So we need truth. We need to be able to look at this. We need to be able to engage this with a critical mind. We need to stand up and say, hey, wait a minute, if somebody did perpetrate a hoax that has lasted for this long, I mean, we need to look at this seriously. So I'm sorry, Skills. I don't know where you're coming from, but clearly not the same planet that I'm living on. But thank you for your comments. So anyway, back to your story, Ryan. Thank you for letting me go on my tirade.
I want to know if Lilo is perhaps looking for a job, because I have never seen somebody that's more experienced in so many topics on like every possible thing. I'm wondering if you can send me a resume, man. For hiring.
It is interesting to see the comments. And again, it's like, I think I just want to say this. It's hard for me, because I remember when I first started in this subject. I mean, when I first started, I'm looking at my library. I've got Communion on the shelf.
Yeah.
I've got all of these books, and I remember, having this sense of wonder, like you did when you first met all of these people. It was like, oh my God, this is so incredible. It's groundbreaking. We've got one foot in a new frontier. And so I think I have to remind myself and read self-help books to go back to that place where I was full of wonder, and I was questioning people that were shining a light on some of these claims and stuff. And so we've all been there. I've got to go back to that. Just remember that. But
I am ready for a new screen share when you are.
Okay.
By the way, my AirPods died, so they're back in their case. So I'm just talking to you through my computer. I'm curious if you guys can hear this rain pounding down.
I know, it sounds beautiful.
Can you or no?
Yeah.
Very loud. Anyhow, all right, so let's go back here. This is a slide that I showed last week to make this full screen. This again is the road. This is the corner that we keep talking about. But in both accounts, they go around the corner and they see a craft. But I really like the way that Red Pill thinks about, quoting from the book. So Erica or anybody, would it be cool if you guys read these quotes out loud with a picture of Gentry here?
Sure, absolutely. Maybe Scott, how about you, Scott? Would you like to read the
Just
quotes?
leave it on the stove.
Your what? Uh-oh, he's got dinner. There's dinner. I know okay. Scott, do you want to read the quotes?
Why, sure.
Thank you.
Let's see. So these are both quotes from the book, I believe, right, Ryan?
Yep.
One description was a framework of metal covered in glass. It was lighted from the inside, kind of a glow coming out of it. You could see window frames in the middle of it. And the second quote was, the matte gray of the metal wall just faded out to be replaced by the glinting, speckled deep space, blacks of space.
So this is comparing these are quotes about the inside and the outside of Gentry. I'm going to zoom in here. Obviously, this is another drone shot, but what's really neat, and I think you guys will remember, for those that have read the book, talk about a podium or a chair in the middle of the room and had kind of controls on it. That's exactly what is here as well. This is called an Oswald Firefinder, and it has controls and dials. And from this podium, it's written in the book that you could see 360-degree view of the stars. That is exactly as described here in this quote here. A framework of metal covered in glass. Well, we have the glass that certainly goes around it. Kind of a glow coming out of it. Of course, that's exactly how this would be as well. You could see window frames in the middle, which we certainly can. Matte gray is exactly the metal that this is made out of. I saw a comment earlier that it was described as being like a brand new sports car. Unfortunately, that's not the way it's written in the book. It's called a matte, just matte gray. These are the descriptions here. Albeit, of course, it would look way better as a sports car. I do want to make a point, though, because it does say in the book that there was no antennas on the craft. Why that had to be pointed out is super bizarre. I'm not sure why that had to be in the book, because as far as I'm aware, I don't know that there was any UFO cases or UFO reports of UFOs flying around with antennas. Clearly, we can see antennas here. With inquiry to the Forest Service, this is a solar panel that's been added in the past 3 to 5 years. These antennas here that we see, the 3 of them, these were added in the mid-'80s. So at the time that this was there, the only thing that would be on the top is this little dome right here. And this is meant for extraction of heat, for a heater or whatever inside. This is a heat sink, I guess. But that's the only thing that would be on the roof, is this dome, which ironically is also how the craft is described. So let's go here. This is another aerial view of how this was accomplished. So this is coming west. Here's that little ravine, canyon, whatever you want to call it, right here, that I talked about in a previous shot. So you're coming around the corner. I really want to make it a point that we have a wall of trees here. These are quite big in real life. These are probably nearing the end of their life cycle as is. And I did show the terrestrial ground-based footage driving from, I think it was probably about here-ish, and I was showing that even when you're right here at this intersection, it's still really hard to see the stilts holding this up. So let's talk about speed descriptions that are used. We're talking about 35 miles an hour, and we're talking about late at night. So as the story goes, again, coming around the corner, you see something glowing and hovering above the tree line. So this is a really tricky part of the book to understand for me. Let's get to chapter 3. All right, so here we are on chapter 3. Let me make this full screen. So we're going to have 3 different descriptions of height right here in the beginning. So when they stop, they might shut off the engine. First, we're told that the craft is 90 feet above the ground. They're amid whoops, I'm sorry about that. They're amid 90 feet above the ground. A strange golden disc hovered silently. Okay, let's go down to the next paragraph. Now, keep in mind, it's not moving. It's just hovering silently. In the next paragraph, now the craft somehow is 15 feet above a tangled pile of logging slash. For people that know what logging slash is, just a pile of twigs, logs, branches, stuff like that. Those are typically about 5 feet high at the max height. But now we're at 15 feet. Okay, somehow this thing has moved. I'm not really sure how, because it talks about that it doesn't move. And then if we go down to the next paragraph, we're going to have a different height of the craft is still stationary. Let's point that out. But, oh, dang it. But now it's hovering well below the treetops near the crest of a ridge. So in 3 consecutive paragraphs, we went from 90 feet to 15 feet to well below the treetops. If you want to dismiss the well below the treetops, all right. But how did a stationary object go from 90 to 15 feet? I just feel like this book has been revised so many times. It's just something that I noticed in here. Another thing that I'd like to go back here is with the truck stopping here, and we do have proof from the Forest Service of the blue light being on the corner, that the view here is so much easier for the guys, because we're not expecting people to see uphill somehow, which you can't see up and over the top of the hill at the other site. But now the guys in the truck can see the blue beam of light as described, is what people are used to hearing. We do have a better view of somebody. Let's keep in mind, these lights, they've ranged in lumens a little bit. I want to be fair to that. Anywhere from 100,000 lumens to 500,000 lumens. That's a lot. So I'm not gonna give you an estimate on lumens, but even 100,000 is pretty bright. Anyhow, I don't know if you guys have pretty decent like mag lights and stuff. They're good ones are about 2,000 lumens or so. If you shine that in your light or in your face at night, it's gonna stun you at a minimum. Just bam. Imagine 100,000 hitting you in the face. That's a thing. But either way around it, I was fairly critical, and I think that y'all should be too when it comes to this going uphill and up over the top of the hill. If these were switched, and I told y'all that Gentry was on top of the hill, and I want you to look over the top, and I want you to see what's on the top of the hill, I think, and I would hope that you guys would say that I am nuts. So let's keep that in mind. And this is the public site. So what's interesting, I see a comment here that 500 lumens would light things on fire. You're probably right. What's interesting is there is a report. I think Rogers may have said it on your show. I might have to double check on this one. I could get back if people are interested. But the light was so hot that it like if you light a barbecue, it would tinge it or like kind of burns a hair on your arm, your eyebrows a little bit. They do say that. I don't know. I've only heard it once. But either way around it, these lights on here are meant to communicate with fire towers that are far away. So,
Ryan, just let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Yep.
So, in the 3 different heights that you gave from the same page from Travis's book.
Yeah.
I just got done watching a segment from the Joe Rogan show with Travis.
Yeah.
January of this year. And he clearly states that the object is 8 to 10 feet away from him.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about, though, Scott. We're talking about the height of the craft above the ground.
No, I know, but it doesn't drift or move. And he claims that it's 8 to 10 feet away from him.
Yeah, the description here for what you're talking about is 30 yards. So he says less than 30 yards away, the metallic craft hung motionless 15 feet above this wood pile. So you're 30 yards away, so 90 feet, and 15 feet up. It's a substantial difference from that. But when it comes to even the size of the craft, there's been reports of it being 50 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet, 8 feet tall, 15 feet tall. I mean, this craft has grown and shrunk with the ages. It's also really important that when a distance is asked, when you left the job site and when you saw the craft, allegedly, that how long did that take? Mike Rogers, just a couple of months ago, is on record saying it took 15 minutes. There's other people that have said 30 seconds. So, I mean, everything is all over the place. It's really hard for these guys to align on the same story about this at all. But, you know, again, this is the digital book version, the most recent up-to-date version. And having 3 descriptions of height is, I don't know, it's interesting to say the least. But let me go back to the comments section here, if that's okay, since we're back here at Gentry again. And let's leave this slide. I hope that people can understand the ask when I'm saying the ask. This is a really hard ask. I mean, Barry, can I get some commentary from you here? You can see this incline that's here on the slide. Let me make this bigger. Do you guys see this incline here of being on top of this ridge? And I'm estimating the trees being lean, 15 feet high. We're asked to look up and over the top of the ridge with trees in the way. Can I get a comment from you on that?
It seems less likely you're going to have a clear view when you're trying to look over the top of a hill, even at an elevated structure. The geometry of what you see in the Gentry picture makes a whole lot more sense, especially when you consider the depictions of Travis being outside, looking at the object in the air, where it is, the beam coming down. You'd have to infer a lot from the hilltop photo that those things happen, but you can practically see the scenario occurring where Gentry is. Just that it was described in a different fashion and as being a fire tower.
Yeah, I mean, this shot that I have here on screen, I know that people really struggle with how can all these guys, because as soon as you hear that somebody works outdoors and they're chopping down trees, all of a sudden they're Paul Bunyan or something. So, because that's how these guys get a lot, and that's fine. But the truth is, I'm not going to say they never went here on their own, but they never went here on their own for the job. Mike always drove them, and they drove a completely different way to work. This was because they're going home late. We're gonna measure distances. We're gonna measure time. Let's go, and I'm gonna drive home this point one more time when it comes to Rim Road. Let's go and let's type in Gentry, because I know that it will pull up an article. Whoops.
I'm going to do the share screen with you again.
Yep, let me just get myself set up, and then I'm going to push that over.
And boys, we're pushing the 4-hour mark.
Okay, let's
It's awesome. This is good. Thank you.
I can stop when people are getting bored.
Nope, we're not bored. This is your this is you have said that this is going to be, your last hurrah, and so I want to make sure I'm here for the duration. I know everybody else is, so thank you.
I'm ready here with this. So this is this article here from the Payson Roundup. UFO visits Rim Road. It doesn't say the UFO visits some old logging road. So this is an interesting way to say it, of course. It says Walton was allegedly carried away by an unidentified flying object on November 5. that hovered over Rim Road. All right. So does Gentry fit? Let's this is going back and forth. This is kind of a pain in the butt. Let's go back to the slide. Hold on.
Do you need me to bring
Yeah,
it
let
back
me
in again?
Okay. We have two locations. One could argue the point that neither are over Rim Road, although Gentry is pretty dang close. Let's go back and look at the other site, which is right here. Rim Road is from here. I'm going to guess half mile-ish. It's substantially further away from Rim Road either way, but we also can't put all of our faith in just one article. It's an interesting thing. So I want to kind of go back because I want to make sure I'm not missing anything here in this presentation, considering that we have been going for quite some time here. All right, we're going to go back to polygraphs here for a second, so I make sure I wrap everything up, and then I'll be done with what I want to show, and let's just go back to questions. These are the 4 questions that the crew was asked, the witnesses. Of course, this is all about a missing persons report, with the only exception being, did you tell the truth about actually seeing a UFO last Wednesday when Travis Walton disappeared? They all answered yes to this. For me, when I read that, initially pro the other side, I think, okay, this is good. This is good. But can I take this same thing and apply it to Gentry? And for me, the answer is even stronger, and I want a second to explain why. I showed everybody that I've been here, I've stood here. You cannot see up over the top of this hill, let alone could you see Travis. I want everybody to go and check this out themselves. Now that I'm making all this public, try and get your vehicle down here, an ATV or walk, whatever you want to do. Go look over the top of that. So did they see a UFO here? It's going to be hard. Okay, so the next ask is this the UFO right here, a craft that's hovering above the tree line, that's as described in the book? We have to ask ourselves, what is easier to believe? We're on flat ground here. I'm not asking anybody to look over the top. I am asking people to see a metal building that's sitting on top of the tree line. So, I mean, this is a conversation that people have to have with themselves on this. Let's go back here. So this is they did pass here. Alan Dallas, his was marked inconclusive, but only on one question, to be fair, and that was something to the question here. Did you cause Travis Walton any serious physical injury? There was a thing going on between them where Alan Dallas had pretty much knocked down a tree that just about took Travis out, and he had trouble with that question. He didn't cause Travis any injury, but he definitely meant to scare him. Here's Travis's polygraph here. His questions are going to be what I think people thought that the witnesses were asked. Were you actually taken aboard a spacecraft near Heber on November 5? Travis, yes. Were you actually in a spacecraft from the 5th to the 10th of November? Yes. Have you lied to Dr. Harder about being in a spacecraft? No. Have you acted in collusion with others to perpetrate a UFO hoax? No. Did you lie to Sheriff Gillespie's questions concerning your disappearance? No. Were you hiding somewhere in Arizona during your disappearance? No. Have you been advised by anyone to lie on this examination? No. These are the questions that I think people think everybody was asked. Let's read the opinion of this polygraph examiner. Based on his reactions on all charts, it is the opinion of this examiner that Walton, in concert with others, is attempting to perpetrate a UFO hoax, and that he has not been on any spacecraft. That's John J. McCarthy that made that opinion. Here is, and this is, I believe, my final slide. Yep. So this is Ground Saucer Watch. They were the ones that were hand-selected by the National Enquirer to deliver their opinion on this case. And it's due to this, what y'all see on the screen here, that Travis got $5,000 instead of $100. Or Travis and crew, $5K instead of $100. Let me make this full screen here. So GSW evaluation. After a time-consuming investigation, the Travis Walton case is considered a hoax based on the following data. Walton never boarded a UFO. This fact is supported by the 6 witnesses and the polygraph test results. Why this is important, and Mike Rogers said it multiple times, there are zero witnesses to an alien abduction. Zero. At best, if somebody really wanted to argue, at best, you could say that you saw somebody or saw Travis get hit with a blue beam of light. However, Mike Rogers just took away that ability for people last week on Erica's show, where he said he took off with everybody before the beam of light even hit him because he had a suspicion that something was going to happen. So this is a true statement. There is no witnesses to an abduction. The entire Walton family has a continual UFO history. The Walton boys have reported observing 10 to 15 separate UFO sightings, which they consider to be very high. I have referenced some of that in the beginning of my presentation, and I did source Small Town USA newspaper ads. Point 3, when Dwayne was questioned, this is Dwayne Walton, Travis's brother, when Dwayne was questioned about his brother's disappearance, he stated that Travis will be found, that UFOs are friendly. GSW countered, how do you know Travis will be found? Dwayne said, I have a feeling, a strong feeling. GSW asked, if the UFO captors are going to return Travis, will you have a camera to record this great occurrence? Dwayne, no. If I have a camera, they're not going to return. Strange comment. Point 4 that GSW highlights. The Waltons' mother showed no outward emotion over the loss of Travis. She said that UFOs will not harm her son, he will be returned, and that UFOs have been seen by her family many times. Point 5. The Waltons refused any outside scientific help or anyone who logically doubted the abduction portion of this story. I can relate to that. As soon as I mentioned Gentry, oh, geez. Like, things weren't so good. But the Waltons refused any outside help. We also see this reference in Travis's book when it comes to the tree rings. If they don't know that the person they're going to be working with is a huge UFO believer, they're not going to talk to you. And then the date, of course, of that is 12/2/75. APRO, who they are 100% Team Travis, they're really Team Travis, became involved in a series of subjective psychological tests. So GSW here is pointing out the difference that if you doubt Travis, he's not going to want to work with you at all. I don't know that, whatever. Y'all can see what that means. The media, AI and Ground Saucer Watch was fair to the witnesses. However, when the story started to fall apart, the Waltons would only talk to people that did not doubt the abduction portion of his story. That's a big red flag for GSW. Point 7, APRO became involved and criticized both GSW and Dr. Hynek for taking a negative position on the encounter. So APRO, again, Team Travis, if he's criticized at all, it's a big problem. And last point, there is some strong evidence that the Waltons sold their story to the National Enquirer, and the incident was completely twisted from the truth. So as a result of this report sent to the Inquirer, they're done. They got their 5K, and that is the story. So I am done with my presentation. This is 3.5 hours.
Well,
Thank you for everybody for listening. In closing, and then I'm going to stop. In closing, I am here to explain my time with this crew. I am being very selective with what I say, and I have never said that. I have never given direct statements or anything related to hearsay about any of my time involvement. I am not asking people to believe me, and as far as I'm aware, I haven't said anything without showing something on the screen at the same time. I'm not asking anybody to take my word for anything. I'm asking for one ask, and that is for you to decide, can people see over the top of a hill, or can they see flat? Can they see over the top of a hill and see a beam of light come down and see somebody get flown back? Are they going to see that on flat ground? Do they want to believe what the book says in terms of the description? Or do you want to have something that doesn't really match the description at all? Are you okay with the discrepancies in the book? But most of all, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, in the last 45 years, many theories, many people have been in my position to challenge, to query, to ask Travis Walton and others, and it has never happened, even with Philip Klass, that Travis Walton has appeared publicly on a radio show or anywhere else to disqualify an opinion, a theory. That is my last statement. I have, without sounding cocky, I'm looking at the proof. Travis has a show tonight. Maybe he's on it right now. I have no idea. And he's got another show on Monday. I've terrified the guy. But listen to how he talks to me. We get along fine. Anyhow, that is it. Thank you to everybody for hearing me. Thank you for staying with me now almost between last Friday and this Friday, coming on 5.5 hours. Thank you, Erica, for being a support of me. Thank you for defending me. Mr. Greenwood, thank you for our conversations. Thank you for your expertise in this field. I thank you for even challenging me yourself. I don't mind to be challenged, and I appreciate it. Scott, I want to tell you thank you for what we talked about on the phone. I don't know that you've mentioned, you said that I taught you a lot, but not necessarily about this story. I asked you, what does that mean? And you said that you learned not to take things at face value anymore, and that you being a believer in this, and then now seeing evidence that has been part of public record almost as long as I've been alive, I'm 44, that you never looked at because you didn't feel you had a reason to, and you wanted to thank me for that. Lastly, are two more people, and I'm done. Charlie, thank you. Charlie has been a great person that challenges me as well. I don't know her real name. I have no idea what she looks like. I only know that she lives on the other side of the world. But you have really been great, and thank you for your help. And lastly, Robert Schaefer, who has been and started this whole thing. So thank you for everybody. I'm here for questions, and I appreciate everybody's consideration.
And I want to just say, and my cat clearly made a little debut, but I want to say thank you because I know this hasn't been easy, and it's been very interesting to me to see some of the people who are in the quote-unquote UFO community who've been sending very, really kind of harassing and bullying messages to those of us, including you, Ryan, who are actually promoting questioning things about this. And I think one of you, I think a couple of you are in chat right now. So Anyway, good luck to you on that one. But I want to also thank Red Pill Junkie, Michael, Skills, Matthew, all of these great people, and Scott Hernandez. Too much info. There's so many people that are actually really asking critical questions now. And Ryan, you have done that, and it hasn't been easy. And I appreciate that, but that's what we need. This is how we need to move things forward. So bravo to you, and thank you for taking all the hits with regard to this. I know it hasn't been easy, so thank you, Ryan. And Barry, what are your closing thoughts on all of this? And I will hang on.
Yep.
Go ahead.
It's up to Travis Walton and his cadre of followers to prove the story. It's always been true. That had to be done. It's still true, and then it'll be true in the future. He must prove it. If we were to accept that that's a visitation of something from outer space or other dimensions or wherever.
Thank you, Barry. And Scott, what are your closing thoughts with all of this? I mean, this has been an adventure for both of us, and I want to just give a shout out to Mario, who has been behind the scenes, and occasionally when I forget to remove him from the screen, who has been there. But thank you, Mario, Northern UFOs, for being here and supporting us in the background. But Scott, closing thoughts.
I just wanted to touch back on what Ryan and I spoke about today, and that was that I've always taken this case, and the foundation of it for me was the witnesses never recanted after all these years. So this has kept this case solid for me, and I thought, there's no way these guys are lying. So these other people, these other two, pretty much can exploit it or make money off it or whatever you want to call it. So I always found that fascinating that one of them would have cracked over the years. And after I looked at this new theory and then went back through the literature and found that Ray Fowler had the same view, that the two fooled the five. And the couple pieces that were missing, well, really the main piece that was missing was the fire tower. And, so I just want to say to Ryan, he taught me something. He taught me a hard lesson. And over the last couple weeks has been, something that I'm never going to forget. So I want to thank you, Ryan. And, you did a fantastic job, and I appreciate it.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
Thanks, Scott.
appreciate that. Quite a bit. I'm seeing a question here. Can Ryan explain what him and you were yelling at each other about? Like Ryan described in the call, we usually get along except for the last time we talked. I didn't say that. That's not a part of the call. What I'm referencing there is statements made on Facebook. And those comments are public, and Scott read them. When I read those comments, I wasn't sure if that was Travis or not. It was clarified on the phone call that y'all have heard that he had help, whatever that means in these posts. But I remember having a conversation with Erica that night, and we both agreed this doesn't sound like Travis, not the way that he talks to me, and that was verified the next day. But no, that didn't happen as you're putting there.
And let me just ask you, and I know it might be hard for you to talk about this, but I mean, you're not coming from the aspect that this could allegedly have been hoaxed because this is coming out of nowhere. You're coming at this because you've spent time with people, and you have stories to tell about that.
Yeah. So my position on that is, and I said at the beginning of the show, what I'm going to be showing people here is my takeaway.
Right.
From having firsthand access to these folks. That's a thing. I think this what's his name? Johnny Church, the guy on Monday.
Jimmy,
sorry. He made some ranty post about unless you've talked to Travis, you can't make it. I talked to him a lot. Like I talked to him quite a bit. We've been around each other. I mean, you hear me in the call talking about being at his house. So I don't know.
Right. It was a very comfortable call. I mean, you could tell that you obviously knew each other. So,
but no, this is my takeaway from it, and I would have I had a hard enough time keeping my mouth shut when Mike was running his mouth about fake stuff last week. That was totally unannounced. It would be really hard for me in the future not to look. I got an RV. If I got to camp out of that campground to wait for Gentry to get lit up and get some great footage of what that thing looks like lit up and make a film, I will, because that's the only thing I can't provide you guys right now is what I saw with it lit up. But I think all of us struggle with somebody being trying to be so careful with what I say, embellishments. Yeah.
okay.
Anyhow.
Thank you. Thank you. I know, and I would love to, and I know that we've talked about this, about perhaps us trying to get a situation figured out so we could come down there and actually go to the site and do a little exploration ourselves. And I think that would be a really great thing to do. And so I appreciate you, Ryan. I will say.
Here's another thing. I just keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No.
Some of these CL 100 cab towers are available for rent by the Forest Service. They're like an Airbnb through the Forest Service, which is pretty cool. Gentry is not. I don't know any around that area, but if what we're trying to do is replicate a CL 100 series tower, and we're trying to see what it looks like lit up, that might be another opportunity. It's the same tower, just wouldn't be at the same location. I know that that's not best case scenario, but you have to admit it'd be pretty cool to spend the night in one.
I'm game. I think we should do it. So we'll figure out a way to do that. And I always think getting out there, and you've done more than 99.9% of the people that are sitting there on radio shows or posting in forums. You've been there. You've met people. You have presented a brilliant 8 hours presentation, over the past 2 weeks. You have opened yourself up to being slammed by people that can hide behind keyboards and that are behaving very inappropriately. And I have to commend you for doing that, because at the end of the day, like you've said, you don't have a gain for this. Mm-hmm. So this is you putting forward something that at the end of the day is going to actually help the community or the UFO subject. I'm not sure if there's help for the community, but you're helping to expose things, and you're helping us to ask critical questions and not to believe things that have been presented time and time again. And I think that at the end of the day, if we take away anything from this, that is the most important thing. You have helped us to ask critical questions and to step back from narratives that have been fed to us so people can make money, so people can, offer these red herrings and push us away from the truth, because there is something important out there, Ryan, and I can't thank you enough for what you've done. I really, it's amazing.
I do. I don't mind people being critical to me at all. I invite it, as long as it's respectful, not some kind of like attacky thing. But there's no point. I'm not here. I'm not getting paid for this. I don't want. Nobody would want to sit around and listen to it. But really, I hope that when Travis goes back, or not back, when he appears on his show, Jimmy Church, on Monday, that the same amount of passion that's shown in the questions here that are shown there as well. I think that would be pretty great. I'm not going to be there. I'll listen, but I'm not going to be in the comments section.
Well, perhaps we can all be in the comment section. That would be good. I think that we ought to, whoop it up a little bit, because Lord knows we've had enough of these people question us. So bring it on. And Ryan, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to hanging out with you, touring the site. And I wish you the best of luck with all of your endeavors. You've been amazing.
Thanks.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Are we?
We're dead 4 hours, I think. Woohoo! So yeah, almost 4 hours. So thank you, Ryan, and I want to just say thank you, Scott. I want to Barry. You are a voice of wisdom and reason, and you have the historical knowledge that is really important for all of us as we delve into murky waters. I want to thank all of you out there. Skills. I mean, shadowy spectrums. All of you, Tom, Ken, you guys are asking questions. We've had an interesting dialogue, and I can't wait to go back and review this. This is how we will make change. This is what we are going to do to move this subject forward. Ryan, you freaking rock.
Thanks. Can I ask one last question?
Yeah.
People in the audience would be willing. Outside of Gentry, leave, just put that to the side. Of all the information that I've shown this time and last Friday, what's the biggest thing that you guys were like, wow, I didn't know that about this case? Would that be cool if you guys put it in the comment section? I think that'd be pretty cool for everybody to see.
Yeah, that's a great question. So please, put that. What's the biggest thing that out there? And I wanted to say, reading the polygraphs. So, and thanks, Michael. Barry can hopefully see your comment. Barry rocks. We know Barry rocks. So, so let's see polygraphs. What other things were really driven home tonight? Come on, guys. I know you're still in there. You can do it. Okay. Oh well, and yeah. So anyway. When Skills said talking behind the scenes, I know one person who interviewed him a few months ago but didn't release it. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, what you're referring to, but anyway, so anyway, yeah, great show. I will get more comments, Ryan, and share them with you. But sleep tight, you guys. Holy mother of pearl! I think I'm going to be, for me, I'm going to be hiding in the closet, perhaps tonight, bathing in holy water. I'm not quite sure. It's been great. It's been amazing. The hill being an obstruction. So thank you for putting that in there. Okay, maybe just get in there. Yeah, we're discussing this earnestly at the ATIP DC admin chat. Interesting information. Thank you, Brian, for getting in here tonight. And that's awesome. So again, thank you, Ryan. Thank all of you. You guys rock. And I will be here next week. And I'd like to say that it's not going to be a 4-hour show. But I dare to dream. This kind of, what do you do? All right.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Bye. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Make sure you go to UFO Classified and help support the show. I want to thank all the people that made donations tonight, and also my Patreons. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.